The Chronicles of the Seven-Colored World, a simple story of battles in another world where a young man, Lee Junwoo, is reborn as Abel in this ruined land. But in a world with such a chaotic balance of power, it's a miracle the hero even survived, where psychopathic heroines, even while loving Abel, would try to execute him in the blink of an eye. Secret organizations will constantly appear to destroy the world and attack the hero. Even allied forces are trying to betray their own side, putting Abel in danger, a work that received numerous harsh criticisms. Still, many people were excited about the terrible plot of the story. Smiling, our hero says he was one of those people, but he wonders if, thrown into this insane world, he would still be laughing like now. Rudian runs when called by a shout, carrying several weapons and a shield on his back. In front of him, a huge stone monster stares with a raised fist glowing with magical energy, making the boy see it as a tragedy. Terrified, the only thing in the boy's mind is that if he gets hit by that blow, he'll turn into tomato paste on the ground. With a shout, Rudian gains speed and escapes the monster's attack. He quickly hands a sword to the knight Eidos, who scolds him for being slow, and a shield to Collins, who tells him to hurry. After stepping back from the warriors, the young man starts mentally cursing them for making him risk his life and still being ungrateful, but ends up close to the monster. The monster's huge stone hand reaches out to grab Rudian, but the knight leaps in front of the attack at great speed to face the creature. Collins' shield blocks the stone palm, protecting the young man, while Sir Eidos destroys the golem's arm with a single strike of his sword. Being protected, Rudian mentally says he's always grateful for their defense. Eidos charges magic into his sword and strikes, splitting the creature's stone head in two. One of the halves falls near our hero, who throws himself aside to avoid being crushed, but he falls awkwardly and gets hurt, which makes him angry. 3 years ago, our hero suddenly woke up in the body of a 14-year-old orphan surrounded by people he had never seen in his life. In the worst possible situation, the only good news was that Rudian's memories remained intact. For an entire year, our hero tried every possible way to return to Korea, but soon realized it was just a foolish dream. Rudian kept recalling the hard years he had gone through until he was interrupted. A man yells to get the attention of the knights of House Iskan, saying the sacred sword awaits them. Karain von Iskar, the young lord of the frontier territory, flaunts expensive gear and claims such weak creatures won't be a hindrance to his knights. He is also the master of our hero, continuously encouraging the warriors to fight. Rudian tries to warn the young noble, who keeps striking poses and taunting the monsters, saying they will never defeat him. Our hero ends up crying while mentally cursing his master as a lunatic, and says he would be happier if the plot were like a cliché, where he becomes the useless son of some noble family. Rudian falls to his knees in tears, screaming why he had to be here, in the Chronicles of the Seven-Colored World, a completely bizarre universe with even stranger monsters, and where, according to the story's development, the world is set to be destroyed 3 times, where an extra who came out of nowhere is now in a world where the destruction of cities is like a midday snack for monsters and powerful people. The knights shout warnings about approaching monsters, 2 red minotaurs armed with axes, making our hero cry over the situation and his desire to live, wondering how he ended up in a dungeon, ignoring the people calling him. Rudian gets slapped in the face while being questioned on how he could handle things so poorly that the Count had to hear about it. Countess Louisa, Karain's mother, furiously continues scolding our hero, who, as the young lord's servant, was hired to prevent such things from happening. She warns that if anything happens to her son, she will grind Rudian into dust, who, irritated, looks at the foolish lord as he averts his gaze. Our hero wonders whether he should give up or get rid of that noble. Karain is the eldest son of the Count and a good-for-nothing known throughout the territory, who only knows how to spend money on women and parties, leaving our hero mentally exhausted from having to deal with the messes caused by Iskar, such as theft of 3 horses, a duel for hitting a noble's brother, and even the theft of an ancestral sword, and everything ends up dumped on our hero's shoulders. This time the problem is that Karain is making contact with the underworld and once again leaves it for our Rudian to resolve. However, he is surprised by the subject when he finally pays attention to what was said. Nervous, the noble spins around saying that this is bad and that they have noticed, while our hero reveals that it's obvious. It's already the 5th time in the same month. Rudian has warned several times, and still, as soon as he stepped away to work, Karain caused an incident. Our hero questions why he torments him, enjoying the company of the bastards of the underworld who are the Empire's problem. Even though this isn't a huge issue since Karain is the son of the king of that place, the real problem is that he was seen having fun with women at night by other nobles who spread rumors all the way to the capital. Karain says that he's the young lord of the area, and that if he himself is involved with such things, this makes our hero question him in an intimidating manner. The noble starts to sweat nervously, saying that maybe this would cause the body of the problem to appear, but Rudian, irritated, asks if he's planning to make such a contribution. Karain is left speechless, and recently, many social and economic problems have been running rampant near the border, making the central government demand stricter control over the territory. But the Count dismissed the interference from the central government, saying that they don't need to worry. Rudian shouts that now the Empire has a reason to meddle in all kinds of matters because of Karain, the Count's son. Our hero is concerned about what he needs to do because the real problem is that if the noble does something foolish, there's a good chance he'll get in trouble too. A crisis that should only be faced after the main story has begun has already happened, and Rudian starts thinking about how to escape the problem. Cut hair flies everywhere as our hero sighs. Now bald, he says that the depravity of the young lord has been confirmed. Prepare to enter the monastery, leaving the noble surprised. In the capital, Neven, the emperor's influence is immense, and such an accident demands the maximum penitence, the guillotine, which leaves our hero frightened. Rudian tries to find a way out to resolve the crisis safely. A trembling hand knocks on the door, and a voice responds that they may enter. Karain and Rudian enter the room through the door while sweating in fear. A man asks why they are there. The Count and his knight stare at Rudian and the young noble. Our hero decided to tell the Count all the foolishness Karain has done. Lord Ricard von Uskar, the Count of the Uskar territory, waits to hear what they have to say. Durek Winhausen, the commander of the Lion Hearts, the Count's private order of knights, knows what our hero has been going through. Rudian uses his gaze to thank the commander for always understanding him. Derek says that the problem is serious, and our hero cries while saying that he couldn't do anything while he was away, but the knight tells him that he should have done better. Lord Ricard says that he heard from the head butler and asks his son if he caused a big incident this time. Still serious, he points his finger at Karain and asks if he knows what kind of people he's been in contact with, leaving the young noble without excuses. Lord Askar says that they are one of the organizations that even the Fifth Order of Imperial Knights is personally trying to eradicate. Rudian gets tense upon realizing that they're in deep trouble and that if the Imperial Knights are involved, the problem is much bigger than imagined. And if it's true, the Iskar family owes a huge debt to the Imperial family. Lord Ricard tells his son to prepare to enter the monastery, leaving him surprised by the information. The Count continues, saying that it won't be for a lifetime, but it's something he needs to reflect on for at least 5 years. Our hero believes this was expected after hearing everything. The calculations say that in 5 years, the main story of this world will begin, and the continent will be consumed by the flames of war. When that happens, our hero will be swept away like a fallen leaf toward a miserable future. Karain asks his father to wait, and the Lord asks if he has something to say. Slamming the table, the young noble says that he'll make a contribution that will compensate for the situation and increase the family's prestige. Lord Ricard says that given the situation, there's no way to stop the interference from the Imperial family unless it's a truly significant compensation. Karain mentions the sacred sword Daylight, surprising his father with the idea. Our hero knows that this is a very complicated dungeon, and the noble won't be able to defeat it. While the young noble shows confidence more than necessary, Rudian wonders if he's gone mad and wants to kick the bucket early. Karain claims it's because of that sword, Daylight, and the dungeon that those underworld guys showed up. Excited, he says that if they manage to get the sacred sword of the Delphion Duchy, they will surely gain the duchy's support. Our hero understands that the noble is trying to survive, but there's no way underworld people are there just to explore a dungeon. Like in the Apophis Belly episode, a dungeon where the evil god Apophis is sealed and cultists appear to try to revive him. An army of 100,000 soldiers was formed and marched with great enthusiasm to subdue the cultists, but in the end they got stuck in the belly, and Apophis turned into the incident where everyone learned the madness of dungeons. After that event, they always send an exploration team before entering any dungeon, which is why the Count would never approve it, thinks our confident hero. Lord Ricard says the location has unconfirmed difficulty, and even though it's in their territory, they can't send many soldiers. Karain insists he will succeed and asks his father to trust him. Derek becomes tense when he sees his lord, Count Ricard, not responding and appears equally anxious about the idea. Our hero believes the Duke would never accept such a gamble, losing several soldiers in his hair, unless he was insane, and yet he agrees. Leaving Rudian shocked by what he hears, the Duke even says he'll trust Ricard just this once. Seeing his son's confidence, the Duke places Derek and 30 knights at his disposal. Rudian tries to argue, but Lord Ricard says he's counting on him to look after Karain. To our hero, this is a disaster, while Duke Eskar tells his son not to disappoint him this time. Karain declares he'll return with the sacred sword, making his father proud, confirming they're two hopeful fools. Our hero cries, knowing that this time he's truly screwed. Sir Direct shouts for his soldiers to prepare for battle against the monsters. Worried, the commander says it won't be easy starting with minotaurs, and that the deeper parts will be even worse. and that they must leave it in God's hands, making our hero celebrate and thank the gods. Since this isn't at the level of the main story, where usually high-ranking demons and ancient weapons appear and everyone has to flee first, and if guys like those minotaurs are showing up, then it's just a regular dungeon of reasonable level for the knights, who, after defeating the monsters, give the command to move forward. Inside the dungeon, our hero wonders what he can do now, and just 3 years after the original story begins, the world will be devastated by demon wars, and in 10 years, humanity will be destroyed once, but there's still time before the destruction, and until then, our hero plans to gather lots of funds and hide in the mountains, living the life of a hermit. This makes him happy, knowing he can create a happy ending for himself, while Karain excitedly yells that everything is going well. Confident, he declares he'll get the daylight sword, treasures, and leave the dungeon. But Sir Direk says it's dangerous to be so loud. The noble says there's nothing to worry about because no matter what appears, he's never afraid. But something surprises him and makes him stop talking. A small stone falls on our hero's head, leaving him shocked by the rain of stones. He asks what's going on. A large, sculpted stone slams into the ground with force. Sir Direk tenses up at what he sees happening. They've fallen into a trap and are surrounded by stone monsters, smaller golems than the first giant outside. Sir Direk commands everyone to flee and make a path using force. Charging into battle, the commander orders the first squad to help eliminate the monsters and the rest to protect the young lord. The battle is intense, and knights scream for help. Our hero guides a frightened Karain to a safe place. But surprised, Rudian asks why the monsters are chasing them. On a narrow stone bridge, the golems pursue our hero and Karain. Sir Direk appears behind the stone monsters, and along with more knights, he destroys the enemies. The commander yells, "Young master," but Sir Direk is caught off guard by a monster rushing past him. The golem moves in to attack Karain, who begs Rudian to save him. With no choice, our hero complains and grabs the young noble, who is thrown away from the monster's strike. Karain cries as he's saved and screams for Rudian. Our hero knows that his status is merely the noble's servant, and if Karain is executed, he'll be executed too. The golem strikes its heavy hand against Rudian's body, wounding him and leaving him confused about what just happened. The attack throws our hero upward and towards a fall. Karain and Sir Direk watch everything in disbelief. Our hero falls freely from the bridge while shouting multiple times through the status window. After the fall, our hero finally opens his eyes. Lying on the ground of a place made of blue stones and well lit, Rudian doesn't understand how he is still alive and asks if this is hell. Still surprised, he sits on the ground and starts moving his arms, noticing that his body is fine. Now standing, our hero says that before kicking the bucket, his prayers reach the universe, for there's no way he could have just woken up like this. Rudian starts walking through the area of white pillars and crystal-like stones, wondering where he is and what kind of place this is. According to the settings, the place is a perfect barrier made of mana from another dimension that exists outside of the world unless it's magic. Suddenly, a mysterious voice speaks. "You've awakened." Surprised, our hero quickly turns around to find out who is there. He faces a red, tentacled monster with a single red eye staring back at him, leaving Rudian shocked. Without warning, the monster begins foaming at the mouth as it is surrounded by several monstrous eyes. Our hero apologizes to the creature, explaining that it's just too strange, and the monster asks if that was really an apology. Excited, the creature says that Rudian is the first human it's met in 1,000 years, and only beings with divine power can find this place an unexpected day. Our hero thinks that even though it doesn't have a mouth, the thing is noisy while its face is being caressed by the creature, which is quite excited. Rudian asks where he is, and the creature answers that it's the place where it was sealed, a relic created 3,000 years ago by a lost civilization called Adora, which confuses our hero. He doesn't remember any civilization named Adora from the original history. Determined to gather more information from the monster, Rudian asks if it was really sealed inside this relic. The strange being gets excited and says it hadn't received orders from its master, which is why it was sealed until now. But as soon as Rudian entered, it awakened. Tense, our hero asks for the identity of the tentacled monster. The creature introduces itself as a 7th-generation general-purpose artificial intelligence named Arcadia. Surprised to hear artificial intelligence, Rudian wonders if this is the legacy of the demon god. Arcadia says it would like our hero to become its master and asks if he accepts. This question makes Rudian sweat cold as he thinks about becoming the master of this being. He wonders what kind of problems he will have if he refuses the offer. Our hero asks what benefits he would have by being Arcadia's master, and Arcadia stabs his forehead with a tentacle, causing a headache and surprising Rudian. Arcadia says that this is the only skill that can help him in this situation, revealing our hero's stats on the screen, making him shout in frustration at how pathetic they are. A status window, just like those in games, appears in front of Rudian. Arcadia says there are no missions like in games, but that he can see the status of opponents, though he can't see them if the difference is too great. Our hero is glad to know that he can avoid trouble and have a better chance of surviving, but Arcadia says only the qualified and gods could be here. Rudian asks what the qualification is, and the answer he gets is that it's someone from another world. This makes him ask what it means to be someone from another world, but Arcadia says it doesn't know, and that its expectations were shattered since Rudian isn't a god. Our hero asks how it can know that he is someone from another world, and Arcadia says it's because of the reaction from the core of his sealed body on the outside. This also means that Rudian has the authority to recover the terminals that Arcadia's creators left scattered. Not understanding, our hero asks what these terminals are. They are Eldorado, the first generation collection eye, Elysian, the second generation research eye, and Utopia, the third generation healing eye. Dilmun, the fourth generation transport eye, Shambhala, the fifth generation combat eye, and finally Eden, the sixth generation restoration eye. These are the 6 auxiliary artificial intelligences that were created. Arcadia says that for each terminal recovered, Rudian will be able to use their special abilities, and that if he collects them all, his sealed body will finally be activated. Our hero understands that if this is all true, he will be able to do something he couldn't before, create a better ending. And if that's the case, our hero accepts becoming the master of Arcadia. The creature says it's a wise choice, while our hero knows the world is about to descend into chaos and it's best to be prepared for it. Happy, Arcadia asks Rudian to take good care of him. Smiling, our hero asks the same and gives him the nickname 80, a name the AI says is a good one. First, 80 says that since the main body is sealed, he won't be able to help his master, and it would be good to obtain Shambhala first. Excited, he adds that with it, they could even face a god, leaving our hero with the feeling he's been tricked. Standing up, Rudian says he first needs to reunite with his group, and once the crisis is over, they can go after the terminals, earning praise from Arcadia for his good mindset. Luckily, 80 has a lot of knowledge about the geography of the entire dungeon, including entrances, exits, traps, and even shortcuts, and so he guides him through the place. According to Arcadia, our hero was destined to hit the ground and bite the dust, but he was lucky that 80 sensed his presence and woke up just in time to save him. Tense, Rudian realizes that C has really passed and wonders if even that is a trick from that Dan writer. Our hero is surprised when he looks down and notices a corpse leaned against the stone wall and asks who that is. Rudian realizes that person must have been one of the best adventurers, having reached the deepest part of the dungeon and made it that far. Arcadia says it's an adventurer who invaded the place 10 years ago and managed to evade the monsters, but wasn't qualified enough to open the door. Our hero prays for the adventurer for having the bad luck of reaching a place with such effort, but not having the key to complete the dungeon. Eddie asks what he's doing, and Rudian replies that he's looting the corpse. Too bad, but he has to take everything he can, and that outside it's common for adventurers to collect things from those who've already passed. Arcadia questions whether they didn't agree this would be called looting instead of custom. Rudian finds a pocket watch and thinks he can sell it for about 10 gold coins, and that the adventurer must have been rich. When he opens the watch, a small plaque with a name appears. The name of that adventurer was Abel. Our hero reads the name again, Abel Retstein, and says it sounds familiar. Rudian is surprised to remember the name. Trembling, he looks again at the deceased adventurer. Shocked, our hero asks why that name is there. Abel is the protagonist of the Chronicles of the Seven-Colored World. Rudian tries to calm down because that shouldn't be chronologically possible. The hero of the Chronicles, after failing his school exams, looked for a truck to reincarnate him. He gets hit by the truck and is sent to another world, where he is reborn into a minor baron family and receives the blessing of the Creator God, obtaining the mythical artifact White World and the Sacred Order Sword of God, Grandia, thus beginning to massacre the demons that appear early in the plot. Still surprised, our hero wonders what in the world is going on. Rudian says he has no proof that that skeleton is Abel, and the clothes are from the kingdom of Urgo, not from the Mori Empire where the protagonist was born. Abel was short and had a complex because of it, unlike the tall remains before him. Worried, Rudian asks himself what's happening, and Arcadia asks if there's a problem. Before the story begins, Abel should have been living his normal life as a child, but the problem is that this place is way too far from his territory. Our hero decides that once he gets out, he'll use his own money to investigate the protagonist, and if he finds him, these items will connect them. Rudian hopes all this concern will amount to nothing. The crystal cave continues being explored. Arcadia says there are no monsters or traps on the path ahead, and that they should turn right while showing a map. Our hero thinks this guy is just too convenient. Rudian is surprised to see a group of people up ahead. Excited, he approaches, calling for the young master. Surprising the knights, Derek quickly orders him to stop, saying that if our hero comes any closer, he'll be attacked. Arcadia asks what's happening, and Rudian, uncertain, says it's either because he abandoned his post or because of Eddie. The captain says there's no way Rudian, who fell from the cliff, could return alive and in one piece, accusing him of being a doppelganger trying to deceive them. Our hero doesn't find that strange and is questioned how he can be there without any injuries. Rudian explains that he saved himself by finding a cave that an explorer had made for emergencies, and on the way back, he got lucky. Derek demands silence and that he prove his identity, and if he can't prove it, he will be executed right there. The commander seriously starts the countdown. Our hero shouts Cynthia's name, revealing Derek's betrayal to his wife, who said she would return to her parents' house, and how he desperately tried to stop her. Desperate, the captain asks what he's talking about, but the knights ask if it's true. Our hero is sure he won't be executed now, but might not survive later. Karain asks why Rudian is late and says he was bored without him. The captain of the knights questions if he's acting normally, but the noble doesn't understand since he's acting normal. A friend's nervous character can't do anything because the Lord says that if there are problems, he will handle them, and they're almost at their destination. Our hero feels relieved because he survived. Arcadia says that hostility hasn't disappeared yet. Karain says they're almost at the deepest part of the cave and that no one noticed Aid, but Arcadia says they can't detect him. The humans of this world can't notice his existence unless he reveals himself, and our hero can perceive him because he's from another world and his master. Considering that he's only just been discovered, being from another world probably isn't a benefit for those who've been possessed. Our hero wonders if there are others who could have fallen into this world like he did. The knights stop upon noticing a being emitting a powerful aura at the back of the place they entered. Two hands hold a radiant sword. A monster smiles while looking at the knights. Sir Derek says that it's a death knight. Karain notices the sword and says that it's the sacred sword Daylight, and that the Duke's information was correct. That monster seems to be Simmer Dran, the person who betrayed the Duke and fled 50 years ago. The monster stands up, disappointed that they aren't knights of the Delphion family. Sir Derek commands his men to surround the creature. Serious, the commander asks the monster why he betrayed the Duke's family and stole the sacred sword only to end up like this. Simmer Dran gets angry and questions the betrayal. Saying that he doesn't have to answer to fools who can't see their own ruin, he launches a spell with his hand extended. Sir Derek is surprised to see skeletal soldiers rising from the ground. Quickly, he gives orders to his men to stay calm, and that the second and third squads should take care of the weaker monsters, and that the first squad should follow him to take down the traitor, who laughs upon hearing all of this. The knights charge at the monster bravely. The battle is intense, with both forces facing each other in small, separate duels. Our hero is surprised to see that the enemy boss isn't falling and seems to be gaining more energy than before. Laughing, the monster regenerates from his wounds and asks if that's all Derek has. The knight complains about the monster's vitality and mana while being informed that the skeletons are also regenerating and they'll soon lose the battle. Karain, excited, supports the warriors, saying that they're strong and should not retreat. Our hero asks Arcadia what he thinks, and is informed that there are external forces involved in the battle. Arcadia says that his master should also be able to see using those eyes. Somehow, Rudian's eyes turn into the same as Arcadia's. He is able to see the monster's status screen with its information, and he notices that it's gaining immortality and infinite mana temporarily. Our hero is confused about the part related to the dungeon's core, but soon understands and realizes where the core is. A red stone on a pedestal behind the monster. Arcadia says that it's a blood magic stone, and that it's of the highest class, used by liches and dungeons. Arcadia also says that the place has a lot of condensed mana, and that it was a wizard's workshop 500 years ago, but that if they don't do something, they will lose the battle. Our hero asks if he could break the core, and Arcadia says yes, but only if he can get through all the enemies. The Death Knight raises more warrior skeletons for the battle, creating problems for the knights. Arcadia says that if Rudian tries to go now, he will be noticed, and due to his physical attributes, his chance of being eliminated is 90%. Our hero watches the other knights, who are frightened, and asks if there is no other choice. A knight informs the captain that they need to retreat before the monsters attack the young lord. Derek says that Karain won't order a retreat, and the soldiers ask the squires to grab the noble who wants to take the sword. The captain says there has to be some way to turn the situation around, and our hero calls his attention. He points to the gem on the wall and asks if it doesn't look very suspicious. Derek looks back searching for the mentioned jewel. Upon finding it, he says it's a blood magic stone. Derek asks two knights if they can destroy the core in time. They respond that it's impossible because the number of enemies has increased and they're stronger than before. Determined, the captain says they'll have to do it, because if the monsters keep growing in number, they won't be able to escape and will be annihilated. Arcadia asks if it was really necessary to mention the stone, and our hero says that since the knights will attack it, the monster will focus all its attention on them. Addy tells his master that it's not necessary to take the risk, but is informed that out of everyone, he has the highest chance of success. Our hero says that even if he can't use mana, he can still swing a sledgehammer. Rudian tries to sneak toward the crystal, and is sure that if he gets caught, it'll be the end for him. Derek tells the two knights to attack the crystal. The monster says he won't allow them to reach the core. Enraged, he commands them to back off while unleashing an attack into the air. Our hero is shocked to witness such a powerful strike. Like a wave, it is fired toward the knights. The attack hits both warriors head-on, and they scream in pain. Karain, seeing the attack, says it's an aura wave and wonders if the monster is a sword master. At that moment, he orders everyone to flee. The squire says, unfortunately, the escape route is blocked, making the noble panic and call out for his father. Derek commands everyone to stand up if they don't want to die there, and says that monster can't use the technique twice in a row. He looks back and notices his two knights defeated, wondering if this is the end. But determined as a knight of the order, Derek says he cannot fall like this, and even if he's going to perish, he must at least ensure the young noble's escape. The monster senses something and turns his head to see what it is. Derek wonders why the enemy turned and also turns to see what's happening. Rudian is surprised and tense as he's caught sneaking by the monster, hammer in hand. Our hero complains they've been spotted, and Arcadia says they were lucky to have made it that far without being discovered. The monster gets so angry that a vein bursts on his face. Because of that, he attacks our hero, who runs away in desperation. Derek blocks the attack with his sword to buy time, and tells Rudian to smash the core, and if he succeeds, he'll forgive him for the humiliation from earlier. Our hero says he'll definitely do it. He quickly approaches the red crystal, confident that he'll destroy the item in a single blow. Rudian freezes upon feeling a powerful aura and hearing a voice asking how he dares. That voice asks who the insect is that dares to touch her heart. She, the great lady of darkness, Casley Richmond, says that for the sin of desiring her heart, she sentences our hero to execution, who is shocked to learn that the magic stone is not just a dungeon core. Casley Richmond, a lich lord who appears around the middle of the chronicle, a powerful archmage capable of destroying a dragon with a single spell. The voice of the destroyer of nations says she'll ensure a painless execution for our hero while beginning to cast a spell. Rudian, upon hearing all that and realizing who is speaking, is terrified, knowing this is surely the end. The sorceress casts her deadly magic, Fatal Strike. Our hero, trembling in fear, opens one of his eyes, still alive. Casley Richmond is stunned, not understanding what happened. Rudian looks at the crystal, not understanding what's going on. The powerful sorceress asks why the absolute spell didn't work and wonders if our hero belongs to the divine race. She casts Fatal Strike again, but it has no effect, leaving Rudian confused as to why he's still alive. Casley Richmond says it's impossible for her to fail, and that he either has divine rank protective magic or belongs to the divine race. Our hero asks if Arcadia did that, who replies yes, having seen that the creature dared to use such a weak curse and therefore blocked it. Arcadia is impressed with her achievement, leaving Rudian in disbelief upon learning that powerful magic is weak to 80. Thinking that she can nullify such powerful magic, our hero wonders how powerful that thing will become once it's complete. Casley Richmond, irritated, demands that Rudian doesn't move, as she will open a dimensional portal to capture him. Our hero knows that the blood magic stone is the witch's heart, and that the heart is the only weakness of an immortal lich. This makes him smile confidently and ask why he should wait. Rudian asks if Casley understands the relationship between employer and employee and questions if the stone is truly fragile, to which Arcadia confirms that it is fragile. Casley Richmond says that she wants to make a deal, and if he lets her live, she will give him anything he wants. Rudian says that he wants her life, but she immediately denies and says she'll give him her treasures or the knowledge she has accumulated over centuries. Holding the hammer tighter, our hero says that he doesn't need any of that. Terrified, the witch commands Simmer to immediately deal with Rudian. Without fear, our hero says he will destroy her before the monster can reach him. Violently, Rudian strikes the crystal with the hammer, exorcising the lich. As the lich is destroyed, she screams about her ambitions and desires. The core is destroyed, and its pieces fly in all directions. This makes the knights, already injured, excited by the imminent victory. The monster falls to its knees, holding its own head while howling in pain. Sir Derek stares at the Death Knight, who calls out for his mistress. Our hero notices a black aura approaching. Rudian is confused when he sees that the aura, emanating from the fragments of the core, circulates around his arm without harming him. A message appears saying that he has obtained the first-class essence of the blood magic stone, and that he has grown stronger, gaining 20 mana. This causes our hero to activate the power of his eyes. He sees the status window, where he notes that he has indeed gained mana. Rudian cries as he feels the power rush through his veins, realizing that he has endured all the troubles just to obtain mana. However, he questions why it's so little for a 500-year-old crystal. Arcadia says the absorption rate is low, as she filtered all the native mana spread across the core before our hero could absorb it. The rate is only 8%, and Rudian asks why the mana was filtered. Adi says that it wasn't mana, but demonic energy, and that it could have turned our hero into a demon, which is why she filtered it. Rudian is scared, realizing that he almost got truly screwed and that his head would have been the next thing to break after the magic stone. Derek approaches and calls out to our hero, who is startled. He wonders if he seemed to be absorbing demonic energy. This leaves him fearful for his own life. The captain's hand touches our hero's shoulder. Derek thanks him for saving his life and congratulates him on the good work. Arcadia is pleased, saying that she filtered everything correctly while our hero shows a crooked smile. Duke Ricard laughs and enthusiastically calls for his son, praising Karain and saying that he knew he would succeed. And now he is the future of the family, and no vassal will doubt his abilities. The young Duke is convinced and says that because of his skills, it was only natural. Our hero is incredulous at the rapid decline of an ancient family of dukes because of such a poor future. Lord Ricard says that the spoils are incredible, and the carts keep arriving, praising the great contribution his son made. Within a week, the Duke will send someone to evaluate the sword, and even if he doesn't come in person, they'll send someone who can't be ignored. For this reason, Lord Ricard tells his son to make sure to leave a good impression on whoever is sent. And with this great success, his name will spread throughout the Empire, as even the Delphion dukedom is involved in this. Rudian worries that if they learn that Castley was the dungeon master, things will become more complicated by giving so much power to the fool Karain. For now, he needs to be the servant of the young noble Iskar. Lord Ricard decides that now he can send his son to the social circles without worry, but soon calls for our hero. Our hero kneels and hears that he's been praised by Derek and the knights, replying that he just did what he should have done. Lord Ricard says that attacking while the monster wasn't looking is something many wouldn't do out of fear, and this qualifies him to stay by Karain's side. The Count says that he's counting on Rudian to take care of the young noble, to his horror, not knowing when he'll be able to escape this nightmare. But with money in hand, our hero praises Karain and the Iskars. It's a whole year's worth of bonuses, plus 10 paid days off, which makes him reconsider quitting the job. Arcadia says what she gave him is better, but our hero says they can't use that right now, so money is great, and that if they tried to use everything they got, the magic tower would be after them immediately, though Arcadia says it's a shame they didn't take it all. Touching a book, Rudian says at least they got the most valuable thing from the place, Castley Richmond's grimoire, which contains all her spells and research, and if they sell a few of the books, they'll make a fortune. Our hero says he needs funds, and even though he can't use it now, it'll be a big help in the future. However, the problem is that the sorceress's Black Knight isn't something from the original story, making it hard to understand. Since the sacred sword was supposed to have been taken by Crocs, one of Abel's companions, when he returned after visiting his family. But the details were never explained, and as the story was progressing into the Celestial Demonic War arc, the author never mentioned it again. This makes our hero think that the Death Knight didn't steal the sword out of mere greed, but rather because of the demon race, and that his main enemies will be the demons, and that they'll be the greatest obstacles in recovering the terminals. Arcadia says they'll just have to eliminate them then. With Castley's execution, the demons will have to start acting, since she was likely disguised as a court mage of the neighboring kingdom, and because of that, the demons and Rowans will begin their moves, and considering the future, they'll need to obtain a demon sword. Arcadia wonders if a sacred sword wouldn't be better for dealing with the monsters. Our hero says sacred swords are hard to get and attract demon attention, and that even with daylight, he would never be able to get one, and reveals that one of the best demon swords is in Iskar, surprising Arcadia. The demon sword Diablo, if we get it, things will be much easier, says Rudian, smiling. Baron Village, with a population of approximately 500 people, is actually a pretty big place within the Iskar territory. In one house, Marco, the village chief of Baron, is begging our hero, who, furious, says he came there to rest. He definitely didn't plan for this. Rudian's plan was to rest a little in his hometown before retreating the sword Diablo. Upon arriving in the village, Marco runs to our hero, who thought it wouldn't be anything serious, but the village chief cries, begging for help, saying the tax collector is coming next week, and to make it worse, the accounts are a mess and only Rudian can help. Our hero agrees to help once, while Marco keeps crying and praises him for being smart enough to work for the Count's family. Rudian asks why the chief hasn't learned yet or why he doesn't hire a scribe, but the answer is that it's too hard and too expensive. Those excuses infuriate our hero, but in the end, he says he'll help, making Marco happy as he says Rudian is the greatest treasure the village has ever produced. Our hero complains about having to work, but the cheerful chief of Baron says he'll make beef for dinner and is going to get the meat from the storage. Upon hearing about the meat, Rudian gets excited, but he knows it's thanks to Marco that he managed to survive when he first arrived at the village with nothing. Our hero begins adjusting the finances and notices there are barely any errors. Powerful knights don't get tired after fighting for a whole week. Rudian wonders if it's because of the mana that he's not exhausted. With the work finished and still in the morning, Marco receives the financial papers as if receiving a divine gift. Our hero feels confident, having done this job for 2 years, and says he could handle those documents with his eyes closed. The chief of Baron says it'd be nice if Rudian went to visit Rebecca. Upon hearing that name, our hero tenses up and asks why her. Marco replies that she's been taking care of the house while Rudian was away, and it would be polite to thank her. Our hero says he never asked her to do that, but the chief says she's been doing the work every day. Because of her, 3 people are suffering from love, and even so, Rebecca is still taking care of the empty house, leaving our hero in trouble. Rudian suddenly lets out a scream of pure fear as he throws himself to the ground, startling Marco. The sound of footsteps echoes, making our hero break into a cold sweat of terror. A young woman enters through the door of the house with a black aura, startling him even more. With a happy smile, the beautiful girl asks if Rudian managed to get his vacation. Our hero asks how she found him, but Marco says, "I told you he'd be tired and that he would see you tomorrow." With a mischievous laugh, Rebecca apologizes to Baron's boss. Rudian gives Marco a cold stare, and he awkwardly apologizes. Rebecca pouts and says that our hero doesn't need to make that face, since they haven't seen each other in a long time. This girl is Rebecca von Bluedrain, an incredibly beautiful woman who deserves the big city and clearly loves Rudian. She is a friendly person who has received many love confessions, and even some nobles are keeping an eye on her. Thanks to Marco's protection, nothing bad happens to her, and normally no man would reject her. But our hero doesn't want to get involved with her, and that's one of the reasons he's working as Karain's servant. Rebecca is a blood witch, a demon devourer who absorbs demonic magic for herself, one of the heroines in the chronicle. However, she is very obsessive, attacking the protagonist from behind while whispering words of love in his ear, making her a very dangerous person. The Bloodrain family are demon hunters, and Rebecca inherited the genes of her half-human, half-demon relatives. A few years ago, she was almost kidnapped by those who wanted her genes, and our hero rescued her alongside the Vigilants and Marco. Since then, Rebecca has shown great affection for Rudian. When she finally revealed her full name, our hero fled to the Iskar Count's house to work, and those emerald eyes and orange hair become aged when she finally awakens her powers. While being watched by our hero, Rebecca smiles seductively and asks if he's in love. Initially, Rudian didn't know who she was since the name was common, but when he found out, it was too late, and he ended up not handling things correctly. Excited, the girl runs to grab the salad and meat in the house, while our hero says he doesn't need it. Still, Rudian doesn't see the madness of the original story, and she is a ticking time bomb, but he still can't coldly push her away. Because both he and the orphan, Rudian, who needs to live alone, struggle to push others' affection away. Our hero doesn't feel attached to the barren village, since, before he got the job, he was looked down upon for being an orphan. The only people close to him are Marco and Rebecca, but if it weren't for Rebecca's awakening event, our hero would have already taken her for himself. During the night, 2 men watch something from the top of a cliff. The shorter one calls the taller one captain. The captain asks what he wants, and Colin responds that they don't know what they're doing and asks if they've already been overworked. The captain says they just need to follow orders, but the warrior says the orders are vague, and they were just supposed to infiltrate Iskar as bandits, where they should find a great master, a 9th class mage, or someone who could make a contract with a spirit king, but this is too dangerous. Colin continues, saying he's never received such ridiculous orders before, having to find someone so powerful on the border, and they're lucky they haven't been caught by the knights. The captain knows it's an absurd order, even for the superiors, but 3 days ago, the commander gave the order to explore the Iskar territory in search of a great master, mage, or someone who can make a contract with a spirit king. And a few days ago, he received information about Karain's achievement, recovering the sacred sword, and noon after that, the search order was sent. The captain believes something is wrong, and that things might be connected. 3 days later, in the village of Baron, our hero is sitting on a bench next to Rebecca, who hands him something. Rudian wonders what's happening as the atmosphere of the place feels strange. Rebecca, concerned, says that bandits have started appearing nearby, making our hero ask if they're insane. Since Baron is close to the Iskar capital, it's strange for bandits to appear in such an important place on the border. Criminals are usually defeated by the patrols. Rebecca says that since yesterday, adventurers traveling through the border have been stopping to warn about the bandits. Rudian says that Marco didn't mention anything about this, but it seems the boss is being more cautious. Our hero doesn't believe it, thinking it's too much of a coincidence for these bandits to appear and be seen as a simple accident, and that during his 3 years living there, he's never seen bandits causing trouble on the border. Rudian believes the enemies haven't made their move yet. 2 days later, near the Iskar territory, Our hero says he found something as he sees a door with golden frames. That seems to be the place written in the original story as easy to find, compared to the 6 scattered fragments or places with special conditions. Arcadia says the place is well hidden, but not impossible to find, while Rudian knows it's easier to reach than the others. Addie asks why the place hasn't been discovered after so many years, and our hero smiles, saying the reason is that everyone perished. The demon sword Diablo, a weapon from ancient eras that was used at the beginning of civilization and in the War of the Second Era, so ancient that there's almost no information about it. And sealed within that weapon is the former demon king Diablo, with power equal to the sacred sword Grandia, and to obtain it one would normally have to go through difficult trials, but it's abandoned in an empty cave. The reason it's still there without a master is that the moment someone tries to touch it, they are cursed and erased from the world. Even great dragons fall victim to the curse. And if that sword were to be awakened now, before the events of the main story, it would cause a great disaster and turn the entire board upside down. Our hero believes that if he can obtain the demon sword, he'll have the power to change everything in his favor. But the important part is whether Addie's protective ability can truly withstand the power of the Diablo sword. Arcadia says he's not worried and asks if that sword is one of the demon kings who fought in the Great Demonic War. Rudian says yes. Addie reveals that even though he wasn't involved in that war, he knows the level of the gods who participated in it. However, Arcadia says he's not certain until he sees the sword, but since it's weakened by the seal, he's sure he can protect Rudian. Our hero becomes worried and wonders how long ago the Diablo weapon was created. Addie says the Great Demonic War happened 10,000 years ago, but the ruins where it was sealed are only 3,000 years old. Perhaps it belongs to an even older civilization. Arcadia, a bit more serious, says it's right there. A sword stuck in stone, emitting a wicked and demonic aura. Diablo, a weapon that appears to be just a plain sword with no decorations, but the reason Diablo chose it is because it's simple. Confident, our hero grabs the sword and begins to pull it from the stone. Darkness falls over Rudian, who suddenly opens his eyes again. In front of our naked hero, there's a hole in the wall emitting black smoke. After a noise, black water starts gushing from the hole. Our hero is confused because he's without clothes and unable to move. Everything starts going dark again, and Rudian realizes his mind is failing. The wall begins to crack with new fractures, and more black water gushes out from them. Arcadia asks if our hero is okay, and he asks how long he was unconscious and what the eye can see. Eddie says 5 minutes have passed and that he managed to purge the mental corruption, which surprises Rudian, who thought it was a curse, not corruption. That is the Demon King's transformation curse. Anyone who becomes the sword's master receives part of the power and mind of the Demon King and becomes the incarnation of Diablo. The problem is the power is so immense that no human can withstand it and ends up perishing. Thanks to Eddie's help, our hero was able to hold the sword and escape Diablo's curse. Rudian is happy because that's already enough, even if he can't use the sword's full power, since the Diablo weapon itself is already enough to defeat the abilities of ordinary magic swords. A voice echoes, letting out a sigh. Our hero becomes confused and looks all around trying to find where the sound came from. The sword begins to speak, saying that he's the first human it's met in 1,000 years, and because of the curse, he'll perish, just another failure. Rudian is startled as black arms emerge from the sword's guard, which says it's bored. The entity inside the sword complains about being trapped and says that if it could get out, or if someone could endure the curse, it would go after the Archangel Uriel X. It would use all its power to help its wielder, but it's impossible, since no human could withstand a curse that even the Dragon Lord couldn't bear. Even though that X had promised the time was near, the entity, so bored, decides it will go back to sleep. Even so, it starts rooting for our hero to stay strong and not be defeated by the curse. Rudian tells the sword to shut up, leaving it surprised. The entity is left speechless and confused for a few moments. It then asks our hero if he is still alive. The being says that no human has lasted more than 30 seconds holding the sword, and confused, asks if Rudian is truly alright. Both scratch their heads, still shocked, and our hero says he is fine, but the entity doesn't believe it. Diablo says the curse was placed by the Arcanes, and that even God couldn't survive it. Our hero wonders if they were truly angels and not demons, while the entity continues questioning if he really overcame the transformation. In the end, the being in the sword understands that Rudian was not affected by the curse, and it says that our hero is worthy of receiving the help of the ancient demon king Diablo. Excited, it continues, saying that they will make a contract, not a cursed one, but a proper one, and Rudian will gain great power without any cost. Such an offer had never been made before, not since the creation, but our hero knows that this being can do anything because it is so powerful. Rudian asks Diablo if there's something hidden in the story, and that even if he is offering so much power, he should have said that as soon as the era of myths arrived, he could escape freely from the sword. Diablo is caught by surprise and is left speechless. Still in disbelief, he asks how our hero knows that. Rudian says that the contract being offered is from the Demon King Diablo, and when he can leave the sword, the contract will be nullified. Our hero remembers that in the future of the story, Diablo helped the swordsman Master Crocs until the beginning of the mythical war. But as soon as the seal was broken, the demon ruthlessly destroyed the warrior. The entity is surprised and asks our hero who he is, to which he replies that it doesn't matter. Rudian suggests a bet, gaining Diablo's curiosity, where the sword must use all its power to dominate him, and if it succeeds, our hero will become the weapon's servant. However, if Diablo fails, he must give up all his power and knowledge for the next 100 years, and even if he escapes, it won't be important. The demonic entity starts to laugh. Releasing an evil aura, Diablo says that our hero doesn't know his place and is being very arrogant just for having been lucky enough to avoid the curse. The demon says he wants to use that arrogance to become the arrogance of the demon god and accepts the bet. Our hero knows he succeeded and says, "You waited 10,000 years. What would be just 100 years? You have no reason not to cooperate." If the bet didn't have a time limit, Diablo would never accept, as he would be freed naturally in 10 years as promised. But since there is a time limit, he will certainly accept our hero's offer. Diablo says that if he truly manages to rid himself of his domination, then the deal will be sealed. Rudian knows that using the sword until the seal breaks would be safer, but if he can use all its power, he may reduce the casualties in the Second War. Diablo releases immense power, engulfing the entire place in darkness. Our hero wakes up again, surprised, now lying on the ground. As he stands up, he sees a beach of sand and black water. Not understanding anything, he wonders if Addy failed, but if it had failed, he wouldn't be thinking. However, if it had succeeded, he shouldn't be there. A sound catches Rudian's attention, and he turns to see what's happening. A grotesque creature emerges from the sea, emanating a black aura. Sweating cold, our hero knows that this is Diablo, and he should be so large that he could cover the mountains, but he is smaller than expected. The Demon King smiles at Rudian, saying that this is truly surprising, and asks if there really is a human receiving a blessing from an unknown god. Rudian wonders if he is talking about Arcadia, and that it wouldn't be strange if he confused him with a god. The entity says that the blessing cannot protect him, as an imperfection like him has emerged. Our hero, upon seeing that scene unfold, doesn't know whether he succeeded or failed. Diablo says that all of his powers have been sealed, but in exchange, Rudian has lost the divine protection, and with that, asks what he will do now. Our hero assumes a martial arts stance and challenges the demon to a fist duel. Not knowing what will happen next, Rudian believes it's better to roll the dice and make the bet. Diablo praises our hero for being incredibly brave and asks if he will fight or not. The demon answers that he won't do anything, surprising Rudian. Diablo begins to laugh, saying that he thought our hero would be shaken, but on the contrary, he was arrogant and called him to a fist duel. The monster said it's going to be very interesting to stay close to Rudian because he sensed a strange fate emanating from him. Our hero is confused and asks what he's planning to do with this talk of destiny. Diablo replies that he's decided to cooperate and help him. Rudian is confused by that, but the demon believes he'll have a lot of fun following him. Diablo says that taking control of our hero right now wouldn't be a good idea and points upward, saying he doesn't want trouble with that creature. Rudian is startled by a strange giant eye in the sky and wonders if he was caught the moment he let his guard down. Arcadia apologizes and says the creature's power is greater than expected and that he'll help now with the barrier. Our hero is surprised to see everything return to normal. Diablo begins to laugh and says that for the next 100 years, he'll be under Rudian's care. This makes him happy for having managed to prepare for the disaster that's about to happen. Inside the house, Rudian is training with the sword. Rebecca gets very excited and asks if he's really gone back to training even though he said he'd given up on swordsmanship. Our hero is sure he'll be able to forge a new path for his life and says he's found hope again. But in a world where a war against aliens is going to happen, his own stats are just as important as his equipment. Rudian wonders if he should go back to training with the knights, but realizing and being able to use mana are different things. Our hero knows that if someone finds out he can suddenly use mana, it will cause problems that can't happen right now, but there's no way he can learn everything on his own even if he trains for years. The girl comments on the argument with Marco about security. Rudian responds about the matter with the bandits, but Rebecca is lost in impure thoughts as she stares at his muscles. Arcadia reports that nothing new has occurred, and our hero says that asking for help is one thing, but at the very least they need to be prepared. Rudian is confident that he can handle the bandits alone and says it would be better if nothing happened. But a thought surprises our hero. Maybe this is the moment of Rebecca's awakening, since he changed the story when he rescued her from the kidnapping. He only saved her because he couldn't just stand there watching it all happen, and because of that, he may have caused a butterfly effect that could be fatal. Rebecca smiles and asks if there's something on her face. Our hero remembers her original story and starts to sweat cold while thinking it's nothing and just gives a nervous laugh. Rain falls at night in the forest. A man tells Lucella that it's raining and they should slow down. The young woman replies to her uncle saying that the sacred sword that had been lost for 50 years has been found and asks if he isn't excited. The man says they're not so weak that they would put their future in a single symbolic relic, but the girl says she's curious. Lucella continues, saying that the sacred sword of the Order of God is one of the most recognized divine artifacts in the entire empire. Her uncle comments that even if it takes some time to retrieve it, they should gather a worthy group with proper etiquette. Lucella replies that his presence is more than necessary for the Count Iskar's family. The man complains that if she hadn't forced him to go on this adventure, he wouldn't be suffering like this. The duo continues walking along the road, passing by a sign. The bell in the church tower rings throughout the village. Marco gives orders for people to rebuild the palisades, set up the traps, and sharpen the weapons blades. Irritated, he asks if they're planning to die by not doing anything properly, and says that if they can't handle it, they should ask Rudian for help, saying that our hero is a veteran who's already been through all this while serving alongside the young noble, and that they should stop whining and ask things. The people start complaining, saying they have to take orders from an orphan who had nothing and now rose in life. Arcadia asks if his master is okay, and Rudian replies that he's not, but that he doesn't care because it's not the second time he's heard those things. But Adi says his expression says otherwise, while Diablo says that negative emotion is very tasty. The demon doesn't like seeing his contractor being humiliated like that, and says that with a bit of demonic energy, he could turn everyone into monsters. Our hero tells him to stop it, but Diablo says it's a shame, and that it would have been a fun spectacle to watch. Rudian says that he knows the demon is just trying to use his powers, but it responds that it's simply bored. Marco calls out to our hero, saying that the person he's looking for has arrived. That is one of the members of the Information Guild, who was called with the help of the village chief. The rain continues to pour heavily in the village. Our hero is surprised to learn that Conscian Hill was attacked, but is informed that the Count must already know everything. The place is a military fort, and those people are certainly not ordinary bandits. They must actually be. The informant says that the bandits are certainly soldiers from a neighboring kingdom in disguise, and once they're safe, they'll continue their activities. 3 territories have already been attacked, and surely a subjugating force will be created. Rudian believes that if they are just knights, he can defeat them. However, if there are demons or their minions among the enemies, the battle will be much harder to win. Arcadia surprises our hero by informing him that the enemies are approaching. Rudian sighs as he stands up and says there's no other choice. As he exits the house, he asks for help from the entity in the sword. Diablo responds that there's no problem, and that he'll have fun testing the power level of the beings of this era. The demon warns that even though he's lending his power without charging a price, Rudian's body is too weak to withstand his strength. Our hero responds that he understands and knows what to do, but the entity says it would have been much simpler if he had become a demon. Rudian knows that if he had transformed, he would be hunted by the protagonist of this world and by a secret society. Rebecca, anxious, calls out to our hero. Rudian notices her worry and wonders if it's because of the crisis or because of her bloodline. Firmly, our hero holds her shoulder and tells her not to worry. Confident, he asks Rebecca to wait just 1 hour and that he'll be back quickly. A group of knights stops in front of the palisades, staring at the villagers. Marco informs them that the territory is under the jurisdiction of Count Iskar, and that he already knows they are not just a random group of bandits. The enemy leader comments that the Empire's Information Guild is really good, and that they made a lot of mistakes, which is why they were found quickly, and because of that, the Count's army will soon pursue them. Irritated, the knight says that for days he's been suffering because of the order he received, but now he's demanding compensation from the local villagers. Activating the power of his eyes, Rudian realizes that the man has the level of a pseudo-knight. Our hero is able to see the enemy's status window. Bernard Calcho, leader of the special cavalry unit from the Kingdom of Rohans, who attacked the nearby villages and hills. Rudian knows that staying in fighting is foolish. Our hero speaks to the village chief, who immediately orders everyone to retreat. This confuses the enemies, who ask the villagers where they think they're running to. Bernard asks why none of his men are chasing those people. The knight pursues Marco, who, terrified, runs from the enemy. However, the enemy catches up to him and quickly delivers a strike to eliminate him. Our hero arrives in time and blocks the attack with his sword. Bernard is incredulous to see that his strike was blocked and that the young man is channeling mana into his sword. Rudian is able to push the enemy knight back. Seeing that sword, Bernard smiles and says he's lucky to know that he's gotten a great war trophy. Rudian starts running while asking, "Who said it's yours?" The knight questions how he dares to run from a cavalry that's so close. At that moment, arrows fall upon the warriors, knocking one down and startling the others, who must stop the pursuit. This leaves Bernard irritated with the hindrance. The villagers prepare more arrows, and only now does the leader of the knights realize that it was an ambush. Our hero taunts Bernard with obscene gestures, calling him an idiot for only realizing now. The knights notice that there are no more people in the entire village, and that they've certainly evacuated everyone. He orders them to annihilate all of them, since there are no more arrows being fired. They just need to be careful to catch all of them. Arrogantly, Bernard believes that a mere militia from a village can't defeat them. One of the knights is surprised when he falls into a hole in the ground. Irritated, he curses, but doesn't notice our hero's sword, which immediately executes him. The enemies realize that Rudian knows how to use a sword and that they shouldn't underestimate him, especially since he blocked the captain's strike. Marco orders them to fire more arrows and draw the enemies into the village. Villagers fire arrows, hitting one of the enemies and neutralizing him. One of the knights asks the captain what they should do, and Bernard replies that they must wait for the rest of the units. However, in his frustration, he gives the order for his men to pursue the militiamen and annihilate them. The rain continues to fall over the village as someone asks if our hero is okay. Rudian says they need to reduce the number of enemies and that if they use the terrain, they can win, but Marco asks how long he can hold out. Our hero knows that in the past he would have had trouble facing 1 or 2 soldiers, but now he smiles and says he'll be fine. Confident for finally having gained a bit of power, Rudian says he's going back. Inside a house, someone is breathing heavily. Rebecca is on the ground sweating cold, seemingly in distress. She says she needs to go, but if she does, she'll end up in Rudian's way. Her vision blurs and she remembers strange people performing a ritual around her. Rebecca, panting, desperately says she needs to hold on. Our hero's sword emits a dark demonic aura. That aura is Diablo, who caresses Rebecca's face, slowly transforming her. With a strange smile and demonic eyes, she says she wants to eat. The rain continues falling throughout the village as the sound of clashing swords echoes through the night. Our hero struggles during the battle and thinks that if he could control Diablo's power, he would easily win, but he still can't control it. Rudian knows that if he loses control of the power, there's a high chance the entire village will be destroyed. The enemy knight is surprised to learn that his opponent can use mana. Our hero finally defeats that soldier with a blow to his chest. Bernard warns his men not to approach because there's a trap there, and asks if those lunatics really use traps meant for monsters. One of the villagers replies that obviously they did, since hunting traps are great for dealing with beasts. That enrages Bernard even more, seeing that they turned the whole place into a living nightmare. In the other villages they attacked, just executing a few people was enough to make everyone surrender, and he doesn't understand why these people resist so much. Marco says that this is the courage of Baron, and that they'll never take the village with such weak soldiers. Rudian knows there are many retired warriors there. Our hero knows the village chief's past, a former centurion, truly powerful, capable of facing anyone, but discharged for insubordination. Rudian declares to Bernard that once they defeat all the knights, the battle will be over. The squad leader knows he must not underestimate his opponent, who, despite being young, can block a mana-infused strike. Bernard dismounts from his horse and comments that it's unbelievable Rudian can awaken mana so early, and that he is the heart of the village. And out of respect for Rudian and the village fighting desperately, he will give a piece of information. Our hero becomes curious about the information but keeps his eyes cautiously on the enemy. The village of Baron is where the knight unit decided to end the strategy, and going further would be dangerous, as it would affect the main city. Bernard says that he is just a unit captain, not the captain, and asks if Rudian understands what that means. Our hero realizes they are not the only ones attacking the area. This information makes Rudian worried about whether they can withstand another attack, since they only got this far because of the traps. Reinforcements from the city will certainly come, but the problem is whether they can hold out until then, and because of this, our hero wonders if he should use Diablo's power. But that is not yet the worst case scenario. Rudian decides to deal with the enemies ahead first and think later. At that moment, a powerful and terrifying voice asks, "What are you doing, Bernard?" The knight is happy knowing that his captain has arrived, which puts our hero in a tight spot. A strange man, with a face more like a monster's, approaches with arms crossed, riding a horse. Our hero activates the power of his eyes to know who he's dealing with. That strange knight is powerful, and his name is Alec Huma, captain of the Special Cavalry Unit, and strangely, he's over 100 years old. Rudian is shocked to see that the enemy's captain is actually a servant of Demon King Iblis. Alec exerts immense pressure with his mana and status over our hero. Our hero knows he's in trouble, but the one saving grace is that the enemy appeared alone. The demon's stats are incredibly high, and he's as strong as Durek. Rudian wonders if the numbers in parentheses are bonuses from being a servant. This makes our hero doubt if he can win alone and how strong a high-level minion would be. And as an avid reader of the main story, Rudian knows how powerful the named demons are, but facing one is very different from just reading about them. Bernard apologizes for the incompetence that caused the loss of several soldiers, but the captain calls him a foolish incompetent. Alec, without even looking, throws a direct punch to the knight's face, The blow is so strong that it brutally executes him. Our hero feels the pressure of a truly powerful enemy upon seeing that. Immediately, Rudian orders the village chief to retreat. Marco, hearing this, orders the villagers to scatter and flee. Even though he's worried about our hero, the village chief has no choice but to flee, knowing that the man before them is beyond what they can handle. Marco just prays for Rudian's safety, while the enemy knights also flee, fearful of the captain. Our hero faces Alec head-on. The place is now silent. This leaves Rudian worried and confused. Alec questions why he is interfering and whether he hadn't contacted him before, but our hero doesn't understand what he's talking about, and that he doesn't know if they were too fast or if the orders didn't arrive properly. But this is happening in our hero's territory. Rudian again says he doesn't understand anything, but Alec responds that he doesn't need to be a hypocrite and underestimate his senses, and that, just like him, both serve a greater being. He finally introduces himself and says he serves the great demon King Iblis. That demon asks for our hero's name and who he serves. At that moment, Rudian has a realization. That guy thinks they are both minions. Our hero looks at the sword, seeing the demonic energy he received through the contract, and concludes that Alec is sensing this energy and getting confused. Diablo laughs and praises Rudian for having good intuition. With this information, Rudian introduces himself, determined to buy time for Marco and the villagers to escape. Alec is surprised by the lack of a last name and that he is not a noble, so he asks who he serves. Our hero knows it's normal for him to be suspicious since demons, when infiltrating, tend to be more particular about the social status of their minions. Rudian knows how to dispel the suspicion and informs him that he serves Asmodeus. This makes Alec smile, saying that only companions know the name of the goddess of lust and indulgence. Diablo is incredulous to know that Asmodeus' little brat would be seen as a goddess in the present and questions what happened to the hierarchy while he was asleep. Alec understands that Rudian is weak, but that appearance is also a skill, which makes our hero angry. However, he only mentioned Asmodeus because he knows she doesn't care about strength or social status, but rather youth and physical beauty. Rudian says he never received direct communication from that demon king. Alec is now invading his territory. The minion seems to accept the information and says that's problematic and asks if the reason is because our hero hasn't put down roots there. Rudian gets more serious and questions where the news was sent since he didn't receive anything. Alec understands that, as they are far away, that wouldn't be strange and reveals that the message was delivered to Marcus Belstead. This information makes our hero smile, knowing who the noble mentioned is, and that Belstead is one of the demon's puppets. Rudian says he remembers Count Gus von Belstead, but corrects himself, saying he's now a Marcus, and asks if he was the contact. Our hero comments that the noble was so insignificant in history that he had forgotten about him, leaving Alec confused by all of this. He continues saying that Castley Richmond's defeat is the reason for the commotion and why they sent such a powerful person to that village. However, Alec questions why that murderous intent, but Rudian replies that it's nothing special, but confidently says that there's nothing strange in preparing when facing an enemy. Alec stares at our hero, not understanding anything, and asks if he intends to face him with that pathetic level of power, and that it doesn't matter if he has a blessing or natural strength. As a human, he is still inferior to him. Rudian knows that if it's a matter of comparing abilities, he'll lose and he doesn't have any blessing. However, that's only when purely comparing abilities. Confident, our hero releases a large dark aura, surprising the demonic minion with that hidden power. Diablo warns that our hero will only last for a minute, and after that, not even a god can protect him, to which he confidently replies that he knows that. The entity gets excited while Rudian prepares for combat. Diablo says he wants to see how useful a minion of the young Iblis really is. Our hero quickly approaches and delivers a surprise strike that hits Alec's chest plate. Even though he's wounded in surprise, Alec begins to fight back with a powerful punch. Rudian notices the massive fist coming toward him. With a pirouette, he dodges Alec's attack. As he completes the spin, he swiftly slashes his sword at the wrist of the enemy servant, who screams in pain from the brutal injury. Alec is shocked to see that he can't regenerate. Our hero knows that the sword Diablo doesn't just cut, and so he asks his enemy if he can feel his soul being sliced. The reason the demonic sword is so powerful is because it has the ability to execute gods, and that will be very important in the future. Diablo doesn't just cut the material, it also cuts the soul and divine essence, allowing it to inflict fatal wounds even on immortals. Rudian says he was ready to risk his own life in a direct fight, but was lucky his opponent dropped his guard. Furious, Alec throws another punch with his remaining good hand, asking our hero if he really thinks he's won with just that. The enormous fist closes in on Rudian's head, but he doesn't dodge the attack. A shield made of pure black mana stops the blow just centimeters from our hero. Alec is shocked to see his power being absorbed by the demonic energy, and says that's not something the goddess of lust could have given. That makes Diablo ask how he could ever be compared to that weakling, but Rudian tells him to shut up because time is running out. The servant can't believe this is happening, that he who received power from Iblis and is known as the Berserker is losing to a mere youth. Our hero attacks Alec's other hand, inflicting another heavy wound. Immediately after the strike, Rudian unleashes a flurry of new sword attacks, making his enemy scream in agony as he's brutally injured. Our hero delivers a final blow that pierces Alec's body. Battles involving demonic energy are dangerous because they contaminate the surroundings, turning the area into demonic territory. But Diablo is different. He can absorb the demonic energy of other demons, and because of that, they can't be detected and won't contaminate the environment. Confident, our hero says that one day he will execute all demons within the kingdom of Rohan. Alec accuses him of being a traitor as he is literally absorbed by Diablo. With a smile, Rudian asks if he's still confused, but says now he should disappear. Our hero finally finishes off that powerful servant of Iblis. With Alec absorbed into the sword, Rudian lets out a sigh of relief. He says that watching someone get absorbed is truly the work of a real demonic sword, and Diablo says he was lucky nothing was left behind, or he'd be in trouble. Rudian replies that he knows, but the entity asks why he evacuated that woman separately, and if she belongs to him. Our hero gets flustered and says the demons might have been after her, but the incident happened because Castley was annihilated. Diablo says that as a descendant of the Predator, she'll definitely attract demons, and if she awakens, it will be impressive. But he asks why Rudian doesn't just awaken her and keep her clothes. He goes on, saying that Rebecca really is attractive, but our hero knows she's extremely dangerous because he's already read the original work. Rebecca awakened because of a choice Abel made, but Rudian prefers that she live a normal life and says they shouldn't talk about her anymore, as he doesn't want to continue their relationship. Diablo says there's no way of knowing how things will unfold, but our hero knows that if the original story continues, Rebecca will end up with Abel, and they'll see each other again. Arcadia reports that someone is approaching, making Rudian ask if they're bandits, but the AI confirms it doesn't seem to be an enemy, just an old man and a girl. That makes Rudian tense, since it's not a usual combination for travelers. Nervous, our hero doesn't know what to do, and since he's out of energy, he can't fight. But if they're not enemies, there's no reason to ignore them. Two people approach Rudian, the nearest one carrying a huge sword on their back. At that moment, our hero thinks those two are anything but normal. Rudian can tell they're nobles from the fabric of their cloaks, and if he had known they were nobles, he would have left already. The girl removes her hood and greets our hero with a smile. However, the smell of blood bothers Rudian, who nervously greets her back. The girl's companion says our hero is like a very cautious dog, but as a warrior, he's decent. The status of the man who praises Rudian for having great intuition cannot be shown. This leaves our hero anxious since he can't see the information due to the difference in abilities, and this indicates that they are extremely powerful. The warrior asks Rudian if he was the one who defeated Alec. Our hero says he didn't win alone and that he had the help of the village, but that man interrupts him, saying that the cuts seem to have been made by Rudian, who confirms that he made the attacks. Since our hero seems to be a teenager, the warrior asks which family he is the heir to, causing the girl to comment that it's been a long time since her uncle has shown so much interest. He says the reason is Rudian's ability, and that there probably isn't a good academy in such a remote place, and that it is naturally intriguing that our hero awakened Mana so early, leaving him shocked to have been discovered just by his appearance. The girl is surprised and asks if he is a student graduating from the Imperial Academy of Ma. Her uncle says that if Rudian were a student, he would know, and asks who those two are since they don't seem like local nobles. The man asks for our hero's name, and he introduces himself, only to be questioned about his last name. Rudian takes a while to answer, but says that he doesn't have a last name. This surprises the girl along with her uncle, who asks if he is not a knight. Our hero smiles and says he is the servant of Karain von Eskar, but knows that he'll be shocked to learn that he is just a servant who gained mana abnormally. Rudian says that the village is his home, and that he fought to protect it, but hides the fact that he also did it to test the power he gained. After that, he asks the duo's names, saying he's never seen them around, but having worked as a servant for years, he would recognize local nobles. The man introduces himself as Marcus Catel von Delphion and the girl as Lucella von Delphion. Upon hearing Catel's name, our hero is surprised to know that he is the Sword Saint of the Empire. He is the best swordsman master of the Mauryan Empire, the younger brother of the current emperor, and a prominent figure who served as the captain of the Imperial Guard. And that man is the predecessor of Crox, who was in Abel's group in the original story, the former Sword Saint, and our hero didn't expect him to still be active. Rudian remembers that Luciella was a great supporter of the protagonist, commander of the anti-demon front, and that in the story, she was already married and therefore not a heroine. However, she had many fans with unique tastes, but now she's not an adult and not married, and she seems innocent, though her confident expression is the same as in the work. Our hero wonders if they are here because of the Holy Sword evaluation. Catel points to the sword at Rudian's waist and asks who taught him fencing. This question puts our hero in a difficult spot, and he tries to calm himself while saying that he learned from a mercenary and trained with the knights when he could. Ketil is surprised about the mercenary, and if it was the king of mercenaries, he would understand, and asks if there was any distinctive feature about that person, and that he would love to meet him someday. But Rudian cannot say that he learned fencing from an artificial intelligence. That fencing is from the ancient Adora civilization, which Adi had in its memory, and somehow our hero is the only heir to the ancient sword art. Lucella apologizes for her uncle, saying that he is making Rudian uncomfortable, and explains that he is usually more reserved, but for some reason he's excited today. Our hero is surprised to see a noble apologizing, since young nobles are usually rude. Excited, the girl asks her uncle to help the village, which is a mess, and finally, Rudian understands why she was loved by the readers. With a thumbs up, our hero confirms that Lucella is a true heroine candidate. However, our hero is at the castle, crying, wondering how he ended up there while he hears people shouting orders. Frustrated, he says that he's still off duty and doesn't want to get involved in complicated matters, questioning why a servant like him is being included in the Holy Sword evaluation. Lucella, quite excited, and Ketil say their goodbyes to Rudian. Lying in his room, our hero wonders how Rebecca is, since she didn't seem well after going through something very tense, and for some reason she refused care, and Rudian ended up being dragged back to the castle. But if he had stayed, he would have had to work helping with the repairs. Our hero comments, sweating nervously, that he didn't expect that smell he sensed in Ketil and Lucella. It came from the battle against the Special Unit Knights, and that only 2 people wiped out 500 elite soldiers. This makes Rudian wish to become stronger in order to recover all of Adi's terminals, and to control Diablo, he'll need to at least reach the level of a master. Determined, our hero understands that it's better to join the knight's training to maximize his abilities rather than work as a mercenary. From the window, Rudian can hear laughter and see the banquet, which makes him assume that if everyone is cheerful, then the matter regarding daylight has already been settled without issue. However, in 5 years, hell will come, and the parties will no longer happen. But until then, our hero wishes everyone can live peacefully and without worry. Arcadia informs him there are visitors, and Rudian turns to see who it is. Karain enters the room with Durek and asks why he isn't at the banquet. Our hero says it's normal since he doesn't have the status to attend, but the young noble asks why he's saying that. Since he is his attendant, he should be helping him at the banquet. Rudian apologizes and wishes Karain would remember that he's still on vacation. Noble Iskar accepts the apology, but Durek draws our hero's attention. He says he heard that Rudian achieved a new great feat, and Rudian thanks him, a bit confused. Our hero wonders how the news reached Durek, since normally after investigating such accomplishments, it would take days before being announced, which suggests that Ketil and Lucella personally informed the Count about his achievement, and that's unexpected. Durek says the Count is very pleased with it, but our hero is confused as to why the knight is talking so much. He continues, saying things worked out, but the Delphion family has one additional request. Rudian finds that interesting, but doesn't understand why Durek had to come to his room personally to tell him. Karain, acting proud, reveals that he's going to the Imperial Academy, where he'll study for 7 years, surprising our hero. He understands what's going on, since the noble earned the merit by recovering the sword, but the Count knows that if he causes problems, it'll be shameful. They expect Karain to attend the academy diligently to redeem his past disgraces, but Rudian knows that's just an impossible dream. Sir Durek says they also hope our hero will attend the academy. This surprises him, and he wonders, me. Ketil examines the sword and says it's genuine, claiming he can feel the unique sensation of a sacred sword. The nobles become excited at the news, saying it was to be expected. Marcus Delphion reveals that Simmer Dran was a powerful knight 50 years ago, and that as a monster, he'd be a master, so he needs to reassess Iskar's knights. Ketil praises Durek, saying his reputation as the Iron Lion is not an exaggeration, and asks if he'd like a duel when possible. The knight thanks the Marquis, saying it would be an honor. Ketil presents a certificate confirming the acquisition of the sacred sword, and says with that, the main matter is settled. But then he says he has a small request to make to the Count, who grows curious about this small request. Lord Ricart now becomes uneasy, knowing that with so many vassals present, this is not a small request, but something Ketil is determined about. Marcus Delphion comments that among the young master's servants, there's a boy named Rudian. This makes the Count even more uneasy. Ketil asks if they can give our hero to him. Lord Ricart asks why he wants Rudian, and the Marcus answers honestly that he's impressed by his ability, and that he heard our hero is a commoner who hasn't taken the knight's oath and wants to place him in a foundation operated by the Duke's family. Lord Ricart is confused, as that place is extremely difficult to enter even for the talented, and he wonders if Rudian truly has talent, knowing he has no mana. In the end, he says that although Karain might be disappointed by this, since it's a request from the Marcus, it's only natural to accept. However, Luciela's cheerful smile makes him realize there's something more going on. With a smile, Lord Ricart says that Rudian is someone he personally chose to help his son, who will be the future local lord, and so he offers a counter-proposal. He says they will send our hero to the academy, and both families will support him until he graduates, and when he graduates, he'll be free to choose whom he wants to join. Lord Ricart doesn't know why the Marcus wants him so much, but if he is that valuable, he can take him back later, and Cadel agrees with the proposal. The Count decides to resolve his son's enrollment, and takes the opportunity to enroll Karain in the academy, which surprises Karain with what his father says. Derek finishes informing our hero that he will attend the academy as a transferred student along with the young master. Rudian sees no problem but wonders why no one asked for his opinion. In front of the castle gate, Cadel greets our hero. He remembers that Luciela said they would meet later and wonders if this was her plan from the beginning. The Marcus says that our hero has a week to sort everything out and then needs to go to the capital with him, while the young woman says that accepting the proposal was the best choice. Luciela says she's happy to have him at the academy, and Rudian replies that he's also happy to leave the obligations of being a servant, but it's a shame he will see Karain's next victim. Excited, our hero says goodbye and says he will see them again in a week. At a tavern near the village of Baron, someone laughs cheerfully and offers Rudian a drink. The village chief is excited to know that the village has managed to produce a knight, but our hero says he's just an aspirant, while Marco says that since he's going to the capital's academy, everything is already decided, and that his title as a knight is already guaranteed, but the only question is which noble he will serve. Rudian changes the subject, asking how Rebecca is, but Marco says that she's still in bed, and it seems the trauma was really severe. Our hero simply comments that he understands while eating. In the end, he visits the young woman, asking if she's alright. Rebecca replies that she's better than before, and that she heard Rudian is going to the capital. When she hears that it's true, she asks if our hero really has to go, which surprises him, as it's the first time she's asked something so directly. Rebecca fearfully asks if Rudian can just work there and live happily together. And she says, with a forced smile, that she knows she's being selfish, but she thought she could at least ask. Our hero knows that the original story is just the story itself, and avoiding it because she is an obsessive heroine is just an excuse, and that in the coming era of chaos, she will be very important, and she only denied her feelings because she wasn't strong enough to match his potential. Now that he has power, he's decided. Our hero touches Rebecca's hand. She is caught by surprise and hears that he would love to, if it were possible. Rudian says that the villagers think he's advancing in the world, but that he doesn't really care about that, and seriously says, "There is something I absolutely must do, because if he just waits without doing anything, the entire village of Baron will disappear in 10 years. Eventually, Rebecca, who lost her home due to the invasion of the kingdom of Rohans, will meet Abel, and they will go on an adventure. And even if our hero does nothing, Abel will end up dealing with the demons, but everyone will disappear along with the village, and that won't be good for either of them. Only he, who knows the future of this world, can prevent this event from happening." Rudian continues to say that things will certainly be complicated and challenging, but they are things only he can do, and that's why he needs to accept this path. Our hero doesn't expect Rebecca to understand the meaning of his words, but anxiously she asks. Showing an aura and red eyes, she says that if that power awakens, she will be able to help him. Our hero is startled by this, while Rebecca says that somehow he knew about it. Rudian is confused, because she should only know about that power after meeting Abel, and immediately he says that she shouldn't do it, and that power will make her unhappy. The Demon Devourer power is essentially a skill to absorb demonic energy, and the stronger it gets, the more fragile the mind becomes. Our hero knows that Abel's fate is complicated and says that he wants her to be happy there, and that he wants her to just continue existing with her brilliant and energetic personality. Rebecca agrees to stay quietly in the village while Rudian wonders if he could replace Abel, but he knows he can't. With the decision made by the girl, our hero is happy, but she says that in return, he needs to make a promise. Rudian asks what the promise is, and Rebecca says that when everything is over, he needs to return to her. Our hero agrees to the deal. In another house, Rudian asks Diablo if it was him, but the entity doesn't understand what he's talking about. Irritated, our hero accuses the demon of having influenced Rebecca's condition, to which he replies that the accusation is too severe. Rudian states that it's not just a hypothesis, explaining that the manifestation of power only happens after exposure to the demonic energy of a truly powerful demon. Our hero says that doing that without warning violates their contract, and Diablo says he was right to follow him and didn't expect a human to know about that. Rudian asks if the demon admits it, but he denies it and says that if it really were his doing, he would have been affected too. But since he's fine, it couldn't have been him, although, given his great power, at most it could have been an indirect influence. This information surprises our hero, who starts to understand that maybe. Rudian clutches his chest near his heart as Diablo says, "I see you finally understood." Shocked, our hero realizes that it was all his fault. The proof of the contract between him and Diablo is a small amount of demonic energy in his heart, and even though it's small, it's powerful enough to have affected Rebecca. Disappointed, Rudian asks the demon to warn him next time, but the entity replies, "Even if I had warned you, I don't think anything would have changed." Our hero just hopes that nothing else goes wrong. A week later, Rudian is with Karain. Both feel overwhelmed by the capital of the Mauryan Empire, a massive city with high stone walls called Nevin. Commoners and adventurers from various social classes walk through the streets of the city. Our hero smiles upon seeing different races in the capital, and it makes him feel like he really ended up in another world, and that the place is nearly 30 times the size of Castle Iskar. Karain pokes Rudian in the face and asks if he found something to eat, while commenting that both Durek and his father care a lot about our hero, and he doesn't understand why, though apparently they don't know that their servant awakened Mana. Karain says that his father ordered him to bring Rudian back to the Iskar family as soon as he graduates and asks if that's not strange. Our hero was confused about the unusual support from two families, but finally understands the reason, and that the Count certainly didn't send his son to say that in front of him. Karain says he believes in the friendship they built, and that his father told him to keep it a secret, but he thinks they don't hide secrets from each other. Rudian gives a crooked smile in agreement, but in truth, he only feels resentment for having to deal with the messes caused by that foolish noble. Karain says they should meet again at the academy, because since our hero is a commoner, he'll definitely be looked down upon, but if they're together, no one will disrespect him. Rudian knows that before disrespecting him, they'll throw out the noble who only causes problems, especially seeing him try to flirt with some of the local girls. Our hero is glad that the noble is no longer his problem. At the gates of the main residence of Duke Delphion, a man says he asked for the sacred sword to be brought, but once again they brought something strange. Cato replies that it's just a hobby he developed in his old age, and asks his brother if he's not being too harsh. But Duke Vincent Delphion, head of the family, smiles, not believing that the Iskar family actually managed to find the sword. Our hero knows that this man is not only Cato's older brother, but also the central figure of the empire. Vincent holds the sword and says that it really happened as the previous generation prophesied. Rudian becomes curious about the prophecy. The head of the Delphion family says it's been a long time since Cato coveted someone like this, and invites him in so they can talk. Our hero is surprised that he too will be allowed to enter, and that such an important person wants to speak with him. Seated at the mansion's hall table, Vincent thanks them for their hard work on the long journey. Rudian senses they're planning something. Since they brought him to that grand house, Cato replies that the effort for the sacred sword is nothing more than expected, and asks his brother if he's not upset about the large payment given to the Iskar family, to which he replies that it's just something he had to endure. Cato is curious and questions why someone with no interest in the Foundation's future, and who never cared about the children brought in, is acting so differently. Why did he specifically bring this young man here? Cato asks again. Vincent lightly taps his teacup on the table to change the subject. The noble asks if he can call him Rudian, and he replies, "Of course, your grace." And now he asks if our hero is one of the people who directly participated in the conquest of the dungeon alongside the heir of Iskar, to which he responds that this is correct. Vincent continues, saying he heard that Rudian was the one who destroyed the dungeon's core and helped defeat Simurdran, who was delaying his arrival with the core. Our hero confirms everything, but wonders how a duke in the capital knows so much detailed information about what happened in that place. At that moment, Vincent shifts to a darker tone, asking if, at that moment when they faced the monster, he said anything. "Anything will do. Tell me anything you heard from Simmer," Vincent says, very seriously. Cato doesn't understand what his brother is talking about, but our hero knows that the Death Knight wasn't a thief and doesn't need to hide it. At this moment, Rudian tells everything Simurdran said during the battle. Vincent remains serious as he repeats what was said, not knowing that its foundations are rotten. Our hero says that the last words of the former knight before being annihilated were, "My lord." This surprises Duke Delphion, and this worries Cato, but Vincent says that the other name for daylight is the Sword of Prophecy, and that his predecessors tried to correct the mistakes of the past, but in the end, the inevitable occurred. Cato doesn't understand and asks what that is, but his brother says it's nothing and thanks Rudian for answering his irrational questions. Our hero stays silent but understands that there is something else going on there. At the Imperial Academy Maha, the director comments that it's very rare to see Cato personally bring a sponsored student. The director says that since the Crown Prince's birthday last year, this is the first time they've seen each other again. Rudian stands frozen upon seeing Rosus Bivalent, the guardian of the Northern Front, a war hero who earned merit in the fight against the Northern Barbarians 30 years ago. Cato introduces our hero as the one he discovered in the land of Eskar, and who is skilled, making the director comment that he has gained benefits beyond the sword. However, the compliments given to Rudian make Roses ask if he might be a genius. Cadel says that perhaps our hero is on the level of Crocs, leaving him uneasy, and the director surprised by comparing him to that level. Rudian knows that man, Crocs, is the sword saint who can face gods with a sword alongside the protagonist Abel. The nobleman affirms that there is no need to test him, and that after a few years, they will be able to judge him, but since he is a commoner, he asks the director to take care of our hero. Roses wonders if there are people with this problem at the academy, but will pay attention, and if there are, will educate them as he did with the northern barbarians. In the dormitory of the Imperial Academy Maha, our hero is surprised to see that it looks like Karain's room, making him wonder if this is really a private room. Cadel says that this is where our hero will stay for the next 7 years, and asks if he likes it, getting curious and asking why Cadel is doing all this for him. Rudian says he checked the Delphion Foundation contract, and that, besides the sponsorship along with Count Iskar, there is nothing like coercion or obligation. Cadel responds that the reason is to create a promising future for a young talent, and asks if that's not a sufficient reason. However, our hero says no, and it's too much money to be considered charity, and asks if that investment doesn't even have minimal protection in the contract. The noble laughs and says he heard that Rudian worked as Karain's secretary, and is really smart, but he made a bet with the Count, and after his graduation, Cadel turns around excitedly, adding, "You will join the Lionheart Knights or the Glory Knights." That's the kind of bet that was made. Our hero is overwhelmed and doesn't understand this bet. Cadel puts his hand on Rudian's shoulder and says that he just needs to understand that, and that's why there's nothing about obligations in the contract. Our hero smiles, but on the other hand, he has no intention of choosing either side and sees the academy only as an intermediate means for the future. Cadel leaves, eager to know which choice Rudian will make. Our hero smiles, determined that he will take all the benefits and run. Now alone in his room, Rudian calls for Diablo, who asks what he wants. Curious, our hero asks if the demon didn't feel any demonic energy in the Delphion mansion, but even though it's a surprising question, Diablo says he didn't feel anything. Rudian asks again, infuriating Diablo, who says that even sealed and with almost all his senses blocked as a demon king, he would certainly feel that energy. Arcadia asks if something is bothering our hero, and he says there is. In the original story, Vincent is an unlucky person, and together with Cadel, they are annihilated by demons. After both died, Lucella became the new head of House Delphion, and the circumstances of the Duke's family were left as mere footnotes in the story. Our hero grows pensive, trying to understand the reason. While Cadel's death would be expected due to his importance, Vincent's case is strange, as there's no clear motive. The Sword Saint was ambushed when he left the capital, just like this time, but the Duke was attacked openly within the capital. However, being attacked just for being an enemy of demons seems rather abnormal. If that were the case, all high nobles in the capital would be targets. Our hero is certain there's something very important behind this, something that can't be overlooked, and it seems he'll need to become a little closer to the Duke's family. In the classroom, our hero is stared at by several students. Arcadia comments that many recognize Rudian's value. He had heard that being a transfer student there was hard, but the attention is really annoying. Diablo says there are many delicious souls and asks if this is what humans call a buffet. Our hero wonders if all the attention is because he's being sponsored by the Cadel Foundation, even though there are 30 other sponsored students in the night department. And among the first years, there are 7 including him who are sponsored. Still lost in thought, Rudian doesn't notice someone asking if they can sit beside him. Surprised, our hero turns to the person and introduces himself. The boy introduces himself as Adel, a senior from the same foundation as Rudian, and says he's happy to meet the transfer student everyone is talking about. Our hero grows curious and asks what he means by that. Adele replies that it's been nearly 10 years since there was a transfer student sponsored by the foundation. Rudian questions it, not understanding why it causes such a stir. Since he's not royalty, but a commoner, he finds all of it quite strange. The senior notices he doesn't get it and explains that transfer students are forbidden at Ma Academy, but Rudian says he knows that. Adel explains that the only ones who can override that prohibition are people with enormous reputations or close ties to the imperial family, and Rudian was brought in by Catel. And since Crocs, the Delphion Foundation hasn't accepted any new student sponsorships. This information surprises Rudian, learning that Crocs was tied to the foundation. Adel mentions that Karain, who gained fame for recovering the sacred sword, is also gaining attention for the same reason as our hero. Rudian remembers that the senior is in the same night department as the young Iskar, though in a different class, and that he won't visit him directly. Adel reveals that he's there due to special instructions from the student council president, and our hero becomes confused about who that is. With a smile, the senior reveals that Lucella is the council president, and says that since Rudian knows Cadel, he's surely heard of her. Our hero is surprised to learn that the young Delphion is the student council president. Adel says that commoners entering the academy often don't know what to do, and that they have a tradition where seniors guide them, and he's there to be Rudian's guide. And since they're both in the night department, it would be a shame if their first meeting ended with only a formal introduction. Smiling and cracking his knuckles, Adel says that as aspiring knights, they should begin with a more physical conversation. Since everyone there is nice, the senior says Rudian doesn't need to be nervous, but that only makes him even more uneasy. At Maha Academy's training grounds, our hero arrives with Adel and notices 3 more people waiting. A boy introduces himself as Oliver Dran and says it's good to meet the popular newcomer, while the girl named Claudia Rage says she was expecting a monster. Both are 5th years. Adel points to a girl who looks ready to cause pain to our protagonist. Her name is Karen Letitia, in the graduation class, and after introducing herself she asks if Rudian is really the talented one brought by the Sword Saint. Our hero says it's just because Cadel favors him, but the senior doesn't agree and thinks it would be good to test him. Excited, Karen challenges him to a duel, leaving Rudian completely enraged. She tosses a wooden sword to our hero and says she won't use her full strength against a newbie, that she just wants to see his abilities. With a burning battle spirit, the veteran tells Rudian to go all out, to which he responds that her expression doesn't match her words. Karen says she won't eat our hero alive, but just wants to taste him, and at that moment, Adel tries to intervene but receives an elbow to the neck. Oliver says he's curious, and Claudia mentions that until now, Sir Cadel had personally selected only one person, Sir Croc. In tears, our hero realizes there's no way out and wonders if he should just end them all. Karen gets curious upon seeing Rudian's unusual posture and asks what the name of his swordsmanship style is. Our hero responds, saying it's the Adora style, a sword fighting technique. The veteran doesn't recognize the name but confidently calls him to the fight. Rudian replies, with pleasure, and quickly advances with a direct attack against the veteran. She smiles and blocks the strike head-on. Karen deflects our hero's attack, dodging effortlessly. The veteran takes advantage of Rudian's open guard and attacks him, but our hero manages to dodge the strike. Both continue exchanging blows, but Rudian is clearly struggling. Claudia and Oliver are disappointed by the many mistakes, seeing that our hero can't maintain his center of gravity and his movements are too light. Rudian attacks again, but the veterans wonder if his posture isn't a mess. Arcadia gets angry and starts saying that this is a swordsmanship art that can even defeat gods, and that they don't know how much time and dedication its creator took to make it. Adel says that Rudian doesn't need to hide his abilities, not knowing that he is doing the best he can. Karen and our hero stare at each other again, swords in hand. However, the veteran thinks it's amazing and says they can't understand without facing him. It seems as if our hero is just swinging the sword randomly, without any center of gravity. Karen feels the pressure as each strike targets every area, while each movement leads to organic responses, blocks, and counterattacks. That's a swordsmanship art made to annihilate opponents, and it's impressive, but it's obvious that Rudian doesn't have mastery and certainly wouldn't be at a level to interest Catel, and maybe there's something hidden. Karen is disappointed and decides to end the duel while imbuing mana into her sword. The veteran charges for a powerful vertical strike. As she approaches, she finally delivers the blow to our hero. He decides to block the strike head-on. The collision of the weapons creates a wave of air and a loud crash. Claudia and Abel are shocked by this. Karen asks how he managed that. That was a mana-enhanced attack, and without control over mana, it would be impossible to block. This makes the veterans seem to understand the truth. Enduring the blow as best as he can, Rudian says that seems like cheating. Karen stops circulating mana in her sword after finally regaining herself. Our hero feels a lot of pain in his arm and gets angry, wondering if that mana-imbued attack was because she was determined to humiliate him in front of everyone. However, Karen is surprised to learn that Rudian, who just enrolled, already knows how to use mana, especially since he's a commoner. The veteran says she now understands why he became a transfer student and that she didn't attack thinking he could block the strike. Still, Karen lowers her head and apologizes for going too far, forgetting the duty of veteran and enchanting the sword with mana. Angry, Rudian says he hopes this doesn't happen again, and even though he knows Luciella had good intentions, maybe she's terrible at judging people. Apologizing, the veteran says she will accept any request from our hero in exchange for his forgiveness, knowing she made a mistake attacking the novice with mana. Oliver is shocked to see Karen apologizing, while Adel is surprised to know that Rudian blocked the mana-enhanced attack. The door to the room opens violently, and a man questions Karen about all the commotion. He's here to check who the new student is under his lady's orders. Oliver tries to explain. However, the veteran continues, saying he can tell just by looking that she went too far testing the novice and ended up being hit once. Kepler places a hand on our hero's shoulder and apologizes on Karen's behalf, saying there was no malice involved. Rudian is surprised and even scared to know who that person is. During Chapter 2 of the story, in the War of Superhumans, he appears as the main villain against the protagonist's group. And that guy, introducing himself as Elvin Kepler, in the original story, was the one who assisted the final boss. Elvin says he'll arrange another meeting since Karen has a very aggressive personality. The veteran says she doesn't need his help, but Kepler says that during the welcome meeting for the new students, things like groups and positions shouldn't matter, and that he's there because Lady Lucella asked him to be, and he doesn't think they're in a position to disregard her authority. Elvin asks if he's wrong, leaving Karen without an answer. He continues saying that as a senior student, he will take responsibility for what happened. Our hero, on the other hand, had no plans to associate with those people, but the one trying to create connections is Kepler, so the story is different. Smiling, Rudian agrees with the veteran. Arcadia comments that our hero has gotten too relaxed lately, and he admits to being relaxed, but says there's nothing he can do when he's this comfortable because of the bed, and that he's happy to be far from Karain. 80 asks if he won't try to learn more about Kepler and his group. Disheartened, Rudian agrees and says he didn't expect to hear that name at the academy. Our hero remembers that during the Superhuman War, the conflict was due to social class differences, and that Elvin appeared as a villain, but not a true enemy, and that it's already been 3 days since he last heard anything from him. But thinking back to the original story, Rudian believes he knows what Elvin might be doing. Smiling, our hero decides he'll be the one to approach Elvin first. Rudian tells Diablo that if they have to fight demons, he'll need to borrow his powers, and Diablo replies saying he'll be glad to. The demon says he doesn't know what happened over the past 10,000 years, but he's angry they're planning another invasion of the mortal realm without him, and he asks if they really dare to steal the conquests he's planning to achieve. Rudian wonders if all the demon kings are like this. Arcadia comments that our hero is worried about those people, and he replies saying he wants to make them his allies. Diablo asks what's so impressive about them. Smiling, Rudian knows that Elvin Kepler isn't just a knight, he's a psychic. Now the secret organization of psychics must be expanding its influence in the shadows, and because of their powers, they're mocked by the mages. This turned into a great tragedy for humanity, because the psychics decided to remain neutral during the Second Demon War, causing the loss of countless lives. However, they planned to earn fame by defeating the demons once the mages' forces were weakened by the hellish monsters. But by then, the war would have already ended thanks to Abel and his companions, making their plan fail and forcing them into the background. The Superhuman War, which wouldn't have happened if the psychics had joined the Demon War alongside humanity, preventing countless deaths. Our hero says he hopes to make those people participate in the war that is to come. Diablo laughs and says he loves Rudian's method of dragging others in to use as shield, but that with his current abilities and status, it's impossible to attract anyone. Irritated, our hero says those things aren't a problem. If he has the right cards to satisfy the other side, any deal will be a success, and Rudian knows many pieces of information that can be used as cards. Excited, our hero invites Arcadia and Diablo for a stroll through the imperial capital. In the bustling western district of the capital, Niven, a hooded person says that this is the place. Elvin asks if they didn't turn down the wrong street, since that area is heavily patrolled by the guards, but the woman says her information network is excellent, surprising Kepler by knowing that street is under demonic control. Removing her hood, Maria Kepler says that if it involves demons, then it's connected to the temple and therefore trustworthy. Elvin says that even if they're right, the street is full of nobles and it will be impossible to deal with them if there are mass casualties by accident. Maria says not to worry, because in case something happens, she brought a secret weapon from their family, surprising her brother. Smiling, the young Kepler reveals an hourglass that emits great magical power. Elvin asks if she really brought such a matchless level artifact, and says they need to be discreet, even if it's a complicated situation. But his sister says that's exactly why she brought it, since they don't know what might happen. Elvin seems tired of the conversation and turns, saying that their mission is important and she needs to find traces of the demons. Del Luda and Nell Luda assure they'll do the job without issue. Maria praises the Luda family for being able to detect people's energy even in crowded places, and says it's a shame her brother took them away from her. Elvin asks her not to say that because it's for the good of the cause, whether they caught him or not, since soon she will be leading everyone. In the unauthorized entertainment district of the capital Niven, Arcadia comments that it's not a good place, seeing that there are poor people, criminals, and women of the night around. Eddie asks what Rudian is planning to do there, and is surprised to learn that he doesn't want to do anything in particular, at least for now. At this moment, the secret organizations are building their power in the shadows, and there must be territorial disputes against the demons who are preparing for war. Our hero asks if Diablo can feel shocks of demonic energy in the capital, and he responds affirmatively, saying that the city can't escape his senses. This excites Rudian, who wants to join, naturally, in the fight between the demons and the psychics for territory. It would be impossible for one of them to be managing a place like this, they would certainly be lower demons or lackeys. Rudian remembers what Alex said during the fight in the village of Biran and knows that it will be perfect if he can get involved with that noble. Gus von Belstad, the demon's puppet and the one responsible for the attack that took the life of Keitel's brother, is the main person that must be eliminated now. As our hero thinks about Eldon Kepler's location to later deal with Gus, a hand grabs his shoulder, calling him. A man asks why he's wandering around there and says that if he's a stranger, he'd better leave while they're asking politely. Smiling upon seeing that a guide has appeared, Rudian questions, "What does this have to do with what I do?" Irritated, the man asks what he just said, but our hero grabs his shoulder. Rudian imbues mana into his hands and with force squeezes the man's shoulder. The force is so much that it makes him drop to his knees on the ground in pain. This makes the man start trembling from fear and pain and ask, more politely, if Rudian is a knight. Our hero intimidates him, saying that from now on if he answers the questions he can leave. Rudian touches the man's forehead and asks about the suspicious nobles in the city, especially if they have green hair or are students at the Maha Academy. Threateningly, he says he wants to know everything that the man has seen, heard, and knows without anything being omitted. Elsewhere in the capital, a conversation takes place about Karen having laid hands on the new student, and that it was Lady Luciella who entrusted this student to her. Maria says that Luciella seems to like the veteran a lot, and that isn't good, but her brother responds that she isn't an enemy and that they need to recruit her or keep her neutral. Her sister asks about the possibility of the newbie causing trouble, which makes Eldon start to think. The fact that he was tested by Karen and that she became embarrassed suggests that he has a bright future, but as for him possibly disturbing their plans, Kepler assures that Rudian is just a first-year student and there's no way the result can be changed and that he will be the disciple of the Sword Saint, and that it is Karen Letitia they need to worry about since she's been competing for the position for 7 years, which makes Maria smile. Confident, the Kepler siblings continue, unaware that our hero is watching them from a tower in a building. Excited, Rudian says that he finally found them and asks if Addie can feel that. Arcadia responds that he can, and is surprised to see that this is what they call a mutant, not expecting such irregular beings to exist in this era. The most powerful psychic in human history and the final boss of the superhuman war, an existence beyond the norm, Maria Kepler. Rudian asks Diablo if the concealment is perfect. The demon would like to complain, but knows that this time it's better to be more careful. Since if the Kepler siblings are acting directly, the situation is far from simple. Confident, our hero decides to take the most prominent path of the capital tour. Dell, using his powers, points to a place, saying it's there, and Elvin comments that it's the L. Granhart Theater. Kepler gets irritated upon learning that it's that guy involved, and that, as always, the mages think they're superior while not looking at their own feet on fire. He asks his sister what their chances are, and she says that the Marcus could be a demon or a lackey, but that according to the family's documents, he shouldn't be dangerous. However, if there are many opponents or if they use all their power, it will be difficult, and it's unlikely that a demon king will appear, so the hope is that the Marcus is a lackey. The group enters the theater along with many other people. On the highest floor of the theater, a large amount of demonic energy floods the stairs as someone comments that the predictions were correct. The Luda brothers complain about how no one noticed the strong smell and the demonic energy inside the place. Eldon says he heard that the Marcus is not a simple merchant, but rather an excellent mage, and that he must have been concealing the traces with magic. Maria smiles as she realizes that this is essentially a mage's workshop. The group enters a room where a man watches them and asks why students from the renowned Imperial Academy are there. Alvin tells the man not to play innocent and says he knows he is behind the weaklings who have been interfering with them. Marcus Gus Belstade, declares Kepler, making the man laugh and ask if they are the thieves who have been robbing his businesses and disappearing indiscriminately. Alvin replies that this isn't something someone who hires actual thieves should be saying, but the Marcus laughs and says they are from the Kepler and Luda families, and that they are mere merchant families without territory who dared to meddle with his association, and for that, there will be consequences. Elvin becomes furious upon realizing both families will be dragged into the problem and accuses him of being a lackey of the demons. Gus is surprised to learn they came there already knowing everything. Kepler draws his sword and imbues it with mana, declaring that he will eliminate the noble and all remaining demons hidden in the Empire. With this declaration, the Marquis unleashes a great demonic power, realizing that their objective is to interfere with the grand plan they have. Alvin becomes tense upon seeing that the enemy is beyond expectations, but knows they cannot let their guard down. Gus comments that he doesn't know what they can do with just 5 people. Kepler is confused when he hears 5. Without understanding, everyone turns around as Alvin says there are only 4 of them there. Our hero appears at the door, greeting the veterans and saying that this is the perfect time for him to join. Rudian smiles and says he's not there to interfere just because he was abandoned by the veteran for 3 whole days. Marcus Gus Belstade, in the original story, before the Second Demonic War, was someone who sided with the demons and split the Empire. Decisively so, for having achieved the feat of executing the Empire's guardian, Marcus Caedel von Delphion and Duke Vincent Delphion, thus leaving his name marked in history. Our hero is surprised to see that he'll have to face him earlier than expected. Upon seeing the stats of Gus von Belstade, who has no high values or more lifespan than a human, Rudian becomes curious, seeing that even as a high-level lackey, he's weaker than Alec, whom he fought in the village of Baron, and wonders what is going on there. Elvin asks how our hero followed them there, but not knowing how he got there, he realizes there's no time to deal with Rudian, so he asks who he is and whether he's an ally or an enemy. Our hero affirms he's an ally, and that now one of his objectives is the same as theirs, making Kepler ask what that objective is. Rudian states, pointing to Gus, that his mission is to eliminate a demon lackey. Elvin is surprised by this, since the information that Gus is on the demon's side makes him wonder if the intel was really obtained secretly by them. Our hero says he belongs to a secret organization dedicated to world peace called Adora, which makes Arcadia glare at her master and question him. Kepler is confused by the goal of world peace and says he's never heard of such an organization. Rudian replies that it's not a large organization like the Psychic Empire, to which he belongs. This surprises the Kepler brothers, prompting Elvin to ask if he really knows the organization. Our hero says he would like to make a proposal to the veterans and asks if they are there to take down Marcus Gus Belstade, and he informs them that even in that busy area of the capital, he doubts the group can execute the noble right now. Elvin questions him, and he is informed that, especially, the Demon King's lackeys cannot be defeated with physical strength, no matter how powerful one is. Our hero looks at Maria and understands that if she is there, it's because they are serious about annihilating Gus, but she is still incomplete. Rudian says that before making a deal, he proposes to help in the battle, and in return, asks if they would form an alliance with him. Our hero asks what Maria, his senior, thinks of the proposal. The young woman is surprised and wonders who he is for managing to follow them here without her noticing, and that he's asking for an alliance with her, not her brother, which makes her question how Rudian knows she is the leader of the organization. Our hero asks what she will do, but Maria refuses, and says she won't accept an alliance from someone suspicious, and now that it's clear he was following them, they have no intention of letting him go either. Rudian raises his hands upon hearing that after dealing with Gus, they will go after him, but he was already prepared in case that happened. That situation is one of the events that happened in the original work. The Marcus was still alive until the beginning of the story. If a fight happens in that place, many people inside the theater will be affected. Our hero knows that they are not stupid enough not to know this. Gus laughs, asking if the interesting farce is over, while Rudian wonders what the group's plan is to corner Belstade. The noble invites them to fight and do their worst, curious to know what plan they have to deal with the situation they got themselves into. Gus releases a large amount of demonic energy toward the group, saying, "Let's start the festival." A green glow appears in front of Maria. The powerful relic in the shape of an hourglass starts spinning rapidly, releasing a large amount of power that clashes with the demonic energy until everything turns dark, which soon reveals desert hills. They are all transported to a desert, and Gus asks if this is the effect of the artifact that can interfere with space, something even the masters of the 4 magical towers desire. Excited, Belstade says he will take that relic and calls them inexperienced youths for thinking they have the advantage just because the terrain has changed. The veterans are surprised to see the demonic energy and that the enemy no longer needs to be discreet. Gus makes several black circles appear in the air. From them, grotesque monsters begin to emerge one by one, growling and snarling. Del asks if they are demonic beasts from the demon realm, and Elvin confirms that Belstade is a summoner who says he was reborn with power that he received. Now transformed into a red demon with horns, he questions if mere youths like them can do anything against him. Kepler is surprised by the change in appearance, but our hero knows that it's not just the appearance that's changing. His power is increasing. Rudian had forgotten that high-level lackeys, according to the scenario, can temporarily transform into demons, which is why Gus seemed weaker than Alec. Our hero is surprised to see that the enemy's combat power is greater than that of Simmer Drain, whom he faced in the dungeon. Now transformed, Belstade says he will charge the price for them getting involved where they shouldn't and says they should have stayed in mere alley disputes for their own interest. Elvin becomes concerned that the enemy might not be a noble demon, and Maria says Gus is probably stronger than noble demons, and they cannot let their guard down. The infernal creatures begin attacking the group, while Belstade laughs, saying they should accept their end obediently. Maria uses her powers, creating lights in front of her. The sound of monsters screaming in pain surprises Gus, seeing a light barrier that repels and harms all the demons that attack it. Belstead is confused, as he didn't think that was possible, since he didn't feel any power and that the amount of mana that girl has is that of an ordinary person. Maria asks if he still doesn't realize it. Our hero knows that she is a superhuman who served as the final boss of the chapter, and that even among the numerous superpowered characters in the Chronicle, which Rudian can't see the stats of, and in the story, her followers describe her as the Golden Empress of Psychics, who confidently declares that this place will be Gus' tomb. Belstead is surprised to see powers that mere humans cannot have. Maria ascends to the heavens, radiating golden light, saying that even though he sees it, he cannot accept the truth before him, and no matter what he does, the result won't change. The young Kepler completes, gathering energy in her hand. Fearful, Gus calls for his lackeys and commands them to destroy that woman right now. The demonic monsters are frightened by what they see. Belstead is surprised again and wonders if he is hallucinating, seeing countless giant rocks being summoned in the sky. Fearfully, the demon asks them to wait and suggests a deal. Maria questions him, but says she will give him all the interest beneath the earth. Gus says he will talk to his master and arrange a non-aggression pact, which is what they wanted from the beginning, and that if they want, he'll even offer his share in the association. But the young Kepler starts laughing. Then she becomes serious again and says that it's actually funny, while directing her hand toward the demon. Gus, terrified, begs her to wait, but the massive boulder crashes into Belstead and the demonic Hydra. The debris begins to wipe out the remaining hellish monsters. Our hero feels a bit intimidated seeing all that power from the Queen of Psychics and knows that in the future, he'll need to turn Maria into his ally. A crater appears where the enormous rock fell, having devastated all the demons. Elvin asks if Maria finished off Gus, but Rudian tells him to wait, saying the veteran shouldn't say things like that, which confuses Kepler. Our hero asks him to look at the crater again and see whether Belstead is truly dead or not. Elvin doesn't believe it, thinking it obvious that even a demon couldn't survive being crushed by something like that. But a massive amount of black liquid substance gushes from the ground, surprising him. Maria remains serious, observing the strange event. The liquid moves abnormally, taking the shape of a demon who starts laughing as he regenerates. Gus is still alive and asks what they'll do now and admits the girl's power surpasses his, but says that alone will never be enough to destroy him. Maria smiles, saying that in their current state, they truly can't annihilate him, and if she'd known that, she would have prepared more carefully. Belstead laughs and asks if she really admits that, to which she replies, if they can't destroy the body, it doesn't mean there aren't other methods. After saying that, Maria closes her hand and activates her powers again, which causes Gus's body to reconstruct itself, bringing terrible pain to the demon. The young woman, a little more sadistic, says that if it isn't a human body, then there's no need to treat it like one, and that after destroying his body until his mind breaks, they'll take him to the Kepler family, where he can be eliminated. Hearing the demon's screams of pain, our hero knows that death is far better than that, and that if he fails to persuade them, he'll end up the same way. Even so, Gus keeps laughing while suffering. With a maniacal smile, he says that if his predictions are right, the effect of that artifact is about to end. Isn't that so? Asks Belstead, leaving Maria speechless. Spatial manipulation is the domain of gods, and there's a limit to what can be done with tools. Laughing, he says she has 10 minutes at most. The young Kepler knows it's true and feels the pressure as the demon laughs at her situation. Realizing his guess was correct, he informs her that now that something has happened to him, his master will soon take action. Maria wonders what she should do, knowing it'll be complicated if his contractor shows up. Even if they win, dealing with the consequences will be difficult. Our hero asks if it's time for him to step in. This surprises the young woman when she hears it. Rudian begins to approach the center of the conflict, seeing that apparently, they can finally resume dialogue. Our hero reminds her that they couldn't take Gus down. Maria repeats again that she refuses to form an alliance with him and claims there must be a way. Rudian says he will withdraw the alliance proposal and asks if she could at least listen to the conditions for one. And since he's a little scared, he wants to add the condition that she won't hurt him. Our hero says he's sure she has some methods, but they probably aren't very graceful ones. And confidently, Rudian asks if he's right. Maria agrees to the proposal offered, but says she will only allow him to speak, to which Rudian replies that she really is quick to decide and that he has no other choice. The intimidating young woman warns him that he better be prepared if he fails. Our hero calls for Diablo, who says he already knows what Rudian wants. The Demon King asks if he's thinking he can't handle that, and Rudian laughs and says of course not, that he just wanted to ask to be sure. Gus seems like he's about to say something, but our hero covers his mouth with his hand, catching him off guard. Rudian pierces the demon's body, who starts laughing and asks what he thinks he's doing, saying that our hero should already know he'll never succumb to that kind of pain and that he should stop the nonsense. but Gus screams in pain while violently writhing. Rudian says that since he's a mage, he certainly knows ways to alleviate pain along with the excellent regeneration ability that comes with immortality. The demon continues to scream in pain while our hero asks where that confidence went and if he lost it because he couldn't regenerate. Mariette is confused as to how he's managing to do that to the monster. Rudian knows that there is no method to break the immortality granted by the contract, but demonic powers can easily be nullified by high-ranking demons, and that among all the demons, Diablo has reached the peak as the most powerful demon king under the name of the Seven Thrones. And with immortality blocked, regeneration will also be blocked. Gus, desperate, begins to scream. No. Our hero, excited, responds, yes. A strange magical circle appears behind the demon. He screams loudly from pure pain and despair. Gus Belstad, who lost the competition for the family succession, entered the path of magic and grew to the point of wanting the position of the next master of the magic tower. However, at one point, his growth stagnated and he was eventually removed from the succession for the position of the next master. When he was exhausted, impatient, and desperate, a demon approached him, and he finally succumbed to temptation. After becoming a puppet of the Demon King, Gus annihilated his own family and rose to the position of Guild Master, becoming the largest source of resources for the Imperial Demon forces and taking on the role of connecting demons with nobles. Our hero begins to absorb mana for himself, certain that no matter how blocked the path to magic is, joining the demons is unforgivable, and without Belstad, the demons in the capital will lose a lot of power. Rudian notices that he gained 5 mana, and that's little compared to when he defeated Castley. Maria descends from the heavens and asks how our hero managed to finish off Gus, but she is surprised by what she sees, a demon sword in Rudian's hands. He confirms what that weapon is and asks if there's a problem with that. Maria becomes serious, questioning if he's really serious with what he just asked. But our hero asks her if he looks like a human who lost his mind, intoxicated by demonic energy. This leaves the young Kepler speechless, and that if he were the host of a demon sword, it wouldn't make sense for him to destroy a lackey, and that no one has ever dealt with demons using a demon sword. Diablo, laughing, says that in the past he has seen many humans do this before, making Rudian ask him not to ruin things. Our hero understands the veteran's concern, but asks her not to ignore the situation in front of her. The demon says that the common sense of today seems quite different from what he knew, and Rudian asks him to be quiet. Maria is deep in thought as she watches our hero argue with the entity, knowing that it's not important where he got it from or how he manages it with a clear mind. What matters is keeping the promise made, and so she apologizes for reacting insensitively. Decided, the young woman says that now they will listen to the proposal that Rudian mentioned. In the dormitory of the Maat Academy, in Maria's room, our hero talks with the young Kepler. She introduces herself again as the next leader of the Psychic Empire, Maria Lou Kepler. Rudian introduces himself as an official member of Adora, the secret organization for the protection of world peace, leaving Arcadia speechless. The young Kepler says that she doesn't know if the words world peace are truly sincere, but praises our hero's performance in the battle. And yet she still doubts him, as among the organizations that her intelligence department knows, there is no name like Adora. Rudian says that it makes sense since they are few and elite, but wonders if they consider just one person as an organization. Maria decides to get straight to the point and asks what benefits they could gain from this alliance. Our hero smiles, knowing there would be many to list, but that it would be enough to present the minimum to persuade her, and that it would be a condition she couldn't refuse. Rudian says that there are several secret organizations, and the reason they've approached the Psychic Empire is that they meet the conditions they want, and there are 3 conditions. The first is not to be evil, the second is to have a certain level of power, and the third is to have the same common enemies to pursue. Maria says that even if they meet the first and second conditions, she doesn't understand the third, and asks if he's talking about a common interest without knowing what their ultimate goal is. Rudian speaks of psychic powers, asking if it's about them being accepted by the public as a conventional ability, just like magic. Maria is surprised and asks how he knows that. Our hero questions if he's right about them fighting demons behind the scenes to block the intervention of mages and take all the credit. And if they earn credit for eradicating the infernal forces that infiltrated, the imperial families will view them more favorably, and that aligns with the desire for world peace. Rudian says that demons have already infiltrated the continent beyond imagination, and although the Empire is relatively fine, the leadership of the other kingdoms already belongs to demons. Maria doesn't seem to believe it, but our hero says that if she investigates properly through the investigation department, she'll find it's all true. The young Kepler asks if infernal beings have really infiltrated the human world that deeply. Rudian speaks about Gus Belstad, the head of the United Theorists Association, and states that they controlled 20% of Imperial logistics, and that this person was merely a lackey of the demons, and questions whether she still hasn't understood. Our hero brings up the benefits she asked about and says that first, they will offer all the information they have about the demons in the Empire. Second, they will give support to the Kepler family and the Psychic Empire, and connect them with the highest imperial nobles. And lastly, they will provide ancient knowledge where the theory of psychic powers was established. At that moment, Maria reacts in surprise and questions whether what he said about the theory of supernatural power is true. Arcadia finds it strange that this is enough to persuade her, and our hero replies that as a psychic, she absolutely cannot refuse. Rudian says that AD may have doubts because he's known the theory from the start, but it's different for them, and thanks to AD's knowledge, Rudian feels confident about the negotiations. In the original work, Maria had psychic powers so strong that other great mages couldn't handle her, but compared to her power, her weakness was very obvious. Rudian explains that due to the lack of theory, these powers are very difficult to learn, less versatile than magic, and cannot be used outside of one's awakened abilities. To overcome this weakness, psychics tried for generations to theorize their powers, but in the end, could only rely on innate abilities and bloodline. The theorization of these supernatural powers is their long-held wish that could break the wall called talent. Rudian is sure they won't refuse the offer because he knows they'll never turn down a simple path to achieve the greatest goal they've been seeking for centuries. Our hero tells Maria that the book written by the ancient Psychic Empire, which has already vanished with time, is in the possession of the Adora organization. Upon hearing this, the veteran is shocked and tense, but Rudian asks her, what will she do now, leaving Maria trembling with all that information. Inside the hideout of the Psychic Empire, someone asks how another person is doing. Elvin worries about his sister, who is reading several floating papers in the air, and she replies that she's fine. Kepler complains that Rudian made things too complicated, but Maria says it was something they couldn't refuse. Elvin asks who that guy is, and his sister replies that after research done by the intelligence department, our hero is literally just an ordinary person. But Kepler doubts that, saying he's never heard of a human who could wield such a powerful demonic sword while remaining sane. Maria says that ego is the only sword capable of destroying the ability of immortality, and that a powerful demon is sealed within it, but a normal human would lose their soul upon touching it. She asks who Eldora really is while thinking that they know everything about the psychics, but know nothing about Eldora. Elvin says that as long as they're being watched, they can deal with them anytime something strange happens, so they might be able to uncover them gradually. Maria says that since they didn't approach as enemies, the most important thing is the benefit they'll get, but they still need to see if what's being offered is truly real. The young woman knows that information, connections, and knowledge are all things they want, and all of it is a very high price for an alliance, and she questions whether their true objective is really world peace. Maria states that for now, she has a commitment with Rudian tomorrow, and so she calls her brother so they can leave. Elvin talks about high nobles with no ties to mages, and asks what kind of connection will be offered. His sister says there are 5 knight families at the rank of Marquis or higher. Maria wonders if it could be one of the 5, but her brother doesn't know and says there are count families on the borders comparable to great nobles like the Iskar. Kepler says maybe they'll be introduced to the Iskar family, since Rudian is from that family. Maria says they will find that out the next day. Our hero decides they need to prepare since Gus Belstad was the highest priority for elimination. This should have only occurred after they had settled in the capital. Rudian knows that with the noble gone earlier than expected, he needs to prepare for the consequences, and that he can still intervene, and he cannot afford to make any mistakes. However, he ends up feeling confused, not knowing why Del and Nell are sitting next to him. Both say that it's Maria's orders. Our hero asks if the order is to monitor him, and the girl responds that it's to take him to their faction, while the boy says they are allies now. Rudian believes it's monitoring and that Elvin and Karen are from rival organizations, but Luciella entrusted her safety to the veteran, who might not like the alliance made, and perhaps that will become a problematic issue. The Luda siblings inform of Maria and her brother's arrival. They barely arrive and immediately ask our hero where he plans to present them. Rudian smiles, saying they'll see when they get there. Imperial Garden, inside the Imperial Palace, Luciella formally greets the prince, who asks what she's doing there. A beautiful young woman timidly greets her. She is Citri Belstad, the daughter of Gus Belstad. Luciella observes, a bit surprised, but the third prince, Roa Wilhelm von Morian, with a bit of anger, questions her if she won't greet her back. Politely, the young Delphion greets her, saying it's been a long time since she last saw her, and Citri laughs a little, commenting that it's the first time they've seen each other since the last ball. Roughly, Roa states that Luciella should be busy with the task he gave her and questions the reason for her visit at this time. Seriously, the noble informs that she is there to report the case of Gus Belstad's assassination. However, without waiting for the prince, he eagerly takes the rolled-up paper about the investigation, saying that there has finally been progress. Ro stands up after reading the paper and says it's the portrait of the people who injured his father-in-law, but quickly corrects himself, saying his father will be revealed, which makes Citri happy. The prince embraces the young woman, telling her not to worry and that he will find the traitors and make them pay, and he will do everything for her, which surprises Luciella. With a dark look, the noble Delphion silently watches the scene of the noble couple. In the eastern part of the capital, in the crowded area, is the headquarters of the Information Guild. Maria looks around, wondering what kind of place this is, while her brother says he expected to be taken to the Eskar estate. The young Kepler asks if the noble is someone who can only be found with the help of the Information Guild, but Rudian responds that it's nothing that complicated. But he warns that since he doesn't know what will happen, it would be best not to say the original name of the organization. He knows that saying Empire in front of an Imperial noble is not good. Maria says that's a good idea, and that makes Rudian smile. Our hero talks to a man and asks to arrange a meeting with the guild master, which surprises Elvin as they're going to speak with the head of the place. The attendant asks if they have an appointment, but Rudian says he just needs to say his name, making the man ask them to wait a little. A few moments later, someone approaches, running. The man apologizes for not recognizing such important guests and says that the master is waiting for them. He asks them to follow him. Mariette is confused by that, and her brother questions whether the guild master's identity is unknown to the public. At the Information Guild headquarters, in the master's office on the top floor, a person greets the guest. The Kepler siblings are surprised. Elvin asks how that person is there, and his sister asks if it's really true. Seated behind a large wooden desk with books and papers is Luciella. With a neutral expression, she greets them and introduces herself as the master of the Information Guild. At the Imperial Maha Academy, in the student council room, Lady Delphion cheerfully welcomes Rudian. She says she's glad to see he's well and asks if he's having any trouble in dorm life, but our hero says he's fine, and that he truly wants to stay there for the whole year, far from Karain. But Rudian wonders that even though he doesn't know when he will be expelled, how can he feel discomfort in paradise? Luciella laughs at that, and our hero comments that the workload has increased and is informed that a recent incident occurred. Rudian says that the Information Guild must be very busy and that the shoulders of Lady, who is the master, must have also become very heavy. The young Delphion says it was already complicated, and now with that scandal that occurred, but she doesn't finish speaking as she notices something. Surprised, she asks what our hero just said. Rudian, with a smile, replies that her shoulders, as the guild master, must have gotten very heavy. Luciella quickly grabs the sword near the table, and with a movement, sends several papers flying as she stares at our hero. She points the sword at Rudian and questions him about his true identity. He answers that he is Karain's servant and now belongs to the Delphion Foundation, but our hero was surprised to see that she had hidden that weapon there. Still serious, Luciella says that's not the answer she wants, and that she'll ask another question. First, how does he know she is the master of the Information Guild? Rudian says the guild is a contradictory existence, and that when Imperial information could be leaked, it's strange that an organization operating privately is so public, and that a guild which trades in information surely generates great capital, but the Imperial family cannot do this directly. Luciella tells him to continue. Such a valuable resource could not be handled by just any noble. At minimum, it would require a great noble family connected to the Emperor, and there is only one capable of that in the Empire. The one that inherited the Imperial bloodline and proved its loyalty for generations, where Luciella, the fiancée of the third prince, exists, it could only be the Delphion. This makes the young woman smile, saying it's a good guess and close to the truth, and yet, a hypothesis is still just a hypothesis. Luciella asks another question. How did he discover all of this? Our hero knows that this is where he can make his move. Rudian responds that a few days ago, an influential noble in the capital disappeared along with some documents that likely contained information about the case. Smiling, our hero points to himself and says that he is the culprit. Luciella is surprised at that, and Rudian continues, saying that he's the one who took down Marcus Gus Belstad. This confuses the noble, and she asks if he's saying that he's the person behind the unprecedented incident where a noble was assassinated in the middle of the capital. It really is him. Lady Delphion becomes much more serious, but our hero says she seems not to believe him. Luciella says the jokes are going too far to say something like that, even though she knows he's exceptional for his age, but he doesn't have the ability to assassinate Belstad. Smiling, our hero says it would be difficult alone, and that a student from the academy couldn't defeat a dark mage who is a demon lackey by himself. Rudian understands she already had suspicions about Gus being a demonic puppet, and he asks if she isn't curious about how he knows her identity and how he knows about the demon's existence. Our hero asks for a meeting directly at the Information Guild tomorrow with those who have joined forces with him. Elvin asks if Luciella is really the master of the place, and his sister is still surprised to see that the secret identity of the guild leader is indeed her. Lady Delphion gets up from the chair with one hand on her head, saying she is just as stunned as they are, and asks if they really assassinated Marcus Gus Belstead, leaving the Kepler siblings in shock. Our hero hugs Elvin, saying they had been monitoring the demon's movements together and finally found the trail of the demonic forms that had infiltrated. Kepler becomes furious, but Rudian says Gus had secretly been working as a lackey for years, and when they eliminated him, they secured evidence, and among it there was a piece of information that had her name. This surprises and confuses Luciella, hearing her name was in the information. Belstead had chosen the third prince to expand demonic influence within the imperial family and intended to use him to usurp her position as master of the Information Guild. And for that plan to work, he connected his adopted daughter to the prince and tried to create a division between the heir and Lady Delphion. This leaves the noble confused. Before the main story, Luciella was to be the third prince's fiancé, but now they're before the engagement, and originally, she would break off the relationship and end up losing her position. Our hero says they created this situation to reveal the truth to her, and that visiting the guild and presenting the evidence would be more convincing. But she says it's a plausible story, yet there are two standing questions. How did he manage to find the demon's traces that even the imperial family and the guild couldn't? And how did they deal with the demonic lackey they discovered? Rudian says he can answer both questions with one answer, but knows that's as far as he can go, and now he needs to pass the turn to. Maria introduces herself as the leader of the supernatural group, the Radiant Psychics, and says it's a pleasure to greet her. Our hero is confident that the combination of these two people will have great synergy, and he wants to see how it will unfold. Luciella questions the name of the group, and Maria confirms that she is correct. Lady Delphion says she didn't think there was an unidentified group in the Empire, and that this is beyond absurd, leaving her speechless. Maria says it's understandable since there are no historical records about them, and that they are simply a group that shares the same ability, known as psychic power. Luciella asks if she really said they possess psychic powers, and the young Kepler confirms that she is correct. Maria makes a chair levitate with her powers, explaining that psionic powers are precise. Seeing that happen leaves Lady Delphion confused, until she is surprised to see the chair starting to break. Maria continues, saying that this is the kind of power causing the furniture to shatter into pieces, and shortly after, it begins to turn into a wooden ball, which falls to the floor. Luciella says that this is fascinating and reveals that she knew of the existence of these powers, but had heard they disappeared long ago and were overshadowed by magic. Maria says that psychic powers are not abilities that should be overshadowed by magic, but it's true that there are those who use this power. Lady Delphion picks up the wooden ball from the floor, saying she didn't expect to see these supernatural abilities that only exist in fairy tales. Luciella says, let's say they defeated Belstead with psychic powers, and if such people created an organization, it wouldn't be strange if they found what we couldn't. However, she knows they didn't come all the way there just to report that fact and asks them the real reason they are there. Our hero knows there are many suspicious things but confidently says he will speak. Rudian and the Kepler siblings kneel and ask Luciella to become their sponsor. After a while, some steps echo through the office. Luciella says they want psychic powers to be recognized just like magic, and Rudian says they just want to serve as an honorable pillar under imperial orders. Our hero says that if their military power and the support she can provide combine, they will be able to deal more efficiently with the demonic forces that exist in the Empire, and Rudian thinks that this will allow them to involve the Sword St. Cato. Luciella becomes thoughtful, knowing that she really has nothing to lose with this proposal. Information about demons in the Mauryan Empire is being gathered from many places, and at that moment, a letter with useful military power rolled itself into this. Lady Delphion says that she can't decide alone and will contact the main family, knowing that this alliance proposal came at the right time and cannot be rushed. With that, our hero says they will be waiting for a response. After everyone leaves the guild, Maria says it's time to ask. How did Rudian know that Luciella was the master of the Information Guild, and if Adora had anyone from the Imperial family? Our hero thinks about having someone from the Imperial family involved. However, he says he won't answer that question, and even though they are allies, he cannot show all his cards. But in reality, Rudian is tense, knowing he doesn't have an answer and that he needs to bluff a bit so that they won't easily doubt his power. And what they are not concerned with his power, but rather political status, since in the original work, without that help, they ended up feeling miserable. Our hero swears that he will make the Psychic Empire proudly recognized as one of the pillars of the Empire. Maria asks why he's doing so much for them. Rudian knows there are many reasons, but the biggest one is not seeing the light, not walking the path they want to follow. That's a huge waste. Elvin becomes curious, and Maria asks what Rudian is talking about. Our hero knows they have power and a cause, but they were created to make Abel's root famous in the original story. And that, in fact, his favorite character was none other than Maria Kepler, who is right in front of him, and that outside of the tale, there was someone rooting for them. Our hero wanted to prove to them through actions and sincerely asks them to hang in there. A carriage crosses the open city gates in the middle of the night, and someone asks who could have done that. An irritated woman asks if Seer has any suspicions. A demon made of black energy apologizes for not having found any clues yet, but the human asks if he has no concept of the time lost with Gus. The infernal being reports that recently the Rohans sent a warning, and he wonders if it's related to the case. The woman laughs and asks if he's talking about the story of the lich who was a court mage and suddenly perished. The creature replies that yes, that's the one. The demon says that Castley was one of the central forces on the side of the Rohans, and there was a report that her magical residue was found near the Imperial border. This makes the human laugh again and question if that stupid lich hit her heart in that place, and for overthinking things, was easily defeated. Irritated, she says that if no traces were found even after using mages, then it must have been a spatial-type magic or artifact, and they cannot tolerate unknown forces. The woman orders the creature to find clues about the enemy and report back. The demon quickly vanishes, saying it will do as ordered. Still irritated, she says they are almost there. Citri shows killing intent as she says it doesn't matter who did it. At the Manhwa Academy Training Center, a sword is swung during training. Our hero does his morning swordsmanship training, knowing that for the next 5 years before the start of the original story, he needs to reach the level of a sword master. Some boys tell Rudian not to push himself too hard and that if he's bored, he should try going to places like balls. He'd be welcome anywhere as a student. Our hero is happy to see that people's personalities aren't as bad as he expected, since he was prepared to be discriminated against, thinking that all nobles were like Karain, or maybe they're being nice because he has Lucella's support. Elvin arrives at the training grounds and comments that Rudian is working hard over there. Our hero greets him when he sees him, but wonders what the senior is doing there and if Maria left a message for him. Elvin comments that he heard Rudian use mana when he trained with Karen, but already expected it because he can control a demonic sword. Rudian says it sounds like there's a spy around the senior, but Kepler reveals that the one who said it was Karen herself, leaving our hero confused, and that, in fact, he bought her off with a parfait and she told him everything, and that they currently don't have a bad relationship. Elvin says they were childhood friends, and before they matured, had promised to marry, but the reason they grew apart was because he began coveting her position, and that he couldn't let her handle everything alone, and chose that path to become the disciple of the Sword Saint and gain knights for Maria. But if they gain the support of the Delphion family, then there won't be any more reason to be the disciple, and his relationship with Karen will return to normal, and for that, he's grateful. Our hero isn't very interested in that, but Elvin says that separately, Rudian has a lot of strange points, like the demonic sword, and that his swordsmanship is very odd, and he has terrible proficiency in handling a sword. Kepler quickly draws his sword and places it near our hero's neck, saying that because of those contradictions, he can't trust him. Rudian seems tired that Elvin is only now saying this. In a room filled with shelves and flying books, someone asks if the name is really Adora and says it's impossible to trust someone with obscure motives. Maria tells her father that the theory they were given is real, and all the researchers agree that it is on another level, a theory from an advanced era, and that they offered such a treasure willingly, but her father says that even if there's a valid point, very few have spoken of world peace, and among those who tried, Matthias Kepler, the leader of the Kepler family, continues, saying that none of them exist anymore. Even in the records kept by them for over 1,000 years, none remain. And in the end, he asks if his daughter has checked those records, to which she replies that she has. But she doesn't believe that the expression our hero showed was fake. Maria soon says that the choice is her responsibility, and for that reason, as the leader of the organization, she believes in the moral duty to repay the favor they received, even if they truly are evil. This makes Matthias Kepler thoughtful, but he soon responds by saying that if she insists, he will leave everything related to Adora entirely in her hands, and she thanks him for it. Still, to have such a systematic theory, and even so, Matthias comments that he finds it suspicious that they use the green world, which leaves Maria speechless. The world of 7 colors refers to dimensions that actually exist, and to 7 mystical artifacts that grant immense power. Among them is the green world, which symbolizes psychic power and is a relic that enables the use of powerful psychic abilities. In the Manhwa Academy training yard, Elvin continues to glare at our hero for not being able to trust him, and that above all, the decisive factor is that he knows about the green world that his main family possesses. Rudian asks if having this knowledge is a problem, and Kepler says it absolutely is a problem because very few among them know about it. Our hero understands why. When he proposed using the relic, Maria was also very surprised. Rudian says he doesn't think it's such a big issue while manipulating power with his hand, and that it's not as if he was trying to steal it or didn't care about how it happened. But once Maria accepted the proposal, he paid the fair price for the power. With a sphere of earth in front of him, our hero asks if Elvin knows that the psychic power gained using the authority of the green world is merely at the beginner level. Elvin says he knows what he's doing is wrong, and Rudian comments that even though he knows, he still does it, but Kepler says that, however, when he took all the magic books from the Marcus Belsted's library, They handed everything over without thinking much since they didn't need them. But seeing him gain psychic powers from the green world, Elvin felt that our hero was collecting different abilities. Along with the fact that Rudian knows the circumstances of the Kepler family and the organization in great detail. Elvin says that if things are left as they are, the Keplers and the organization will become entangled in our hero's intentions, and this will eventually lead to something horrible. Rudian smiles, seeing that the veteran is someone determined to do everything for the organization and has a tendency to pursue great causes. He wonders why he shouldn't recruit him as a companion for the group. Our hero confirms that he is indeed collecting abilities, but doesn't say that he desires to acquire every power he can in the world. To achieve this, he needs to gather as many companions as possible, just like Abel did. Rudian says he can prove his innocence and objectives simultaneously. Smiling, he places Elvin's sword near his own neck and asks, "If you monitor each of my steps, you'll learn quite a bit about me, won't you?" Kepler becomes confused by what he is saying, but our hero says that he will actively demonstrate that they are indeed sincere allies, and asks the veteran if that idea is better than causing conflicts there and destroying the alliance. Elvin accepts the proposal, while Rudian is happy to gain a reliable companion, but Arcadia comments if he doesn't mean a reliable slave. Kepler says he will monitor our hero completely, and if he finds anything suspicious, he won't let it slide. Rudian smiles, knowing that from his perspective, he also doesn't intend to let the veteran remain idle. However, our hero becomes tense when he sees that. Elvin is in his room, making Rudian wonder what is going on there. Elvin responds that he will be living in the dormitory too. Our hero questions if the dorms weren't meant for one person per room, but Kepler says there are no vacant rooms, and since they are big, he asks if it will be a problem to have two there. The noble says that Rudian's movements are at the basic level, and that he doesn't know how he awakened mana, but he can help him reduce the time to refine his fencing. Our hero asks if he can really do that, irritating Elvin, who responds that he's the greatest genius in the academy and questions if Rudian knows that. Rudian had forgotten about that because Maria is very admirable, but Kepler was a character who served as the intermediate boss of Chapter 1. He is really strong, our hero comments while looking at the veteran's status window. Rudian knows that thanks to the special status of psychic power, even if the other statuses are at the level of a common knight, his combat power is very high. And at this point, Elvin is not only superior to Alakuma, whom our hero fought before, but also to Gus pre-demonification. Our hero believes that considering his age, he is certainly at a level that could be called monstrous. Kepler says that the fencing training is a small help, and that if Rudian thought he would just sit and watch, then he's mistaken. Our hero thanks him for the help and says it's always welcome, but he is determined not to let the veteran just watch. Rudian sits on the bed and confidently says that he has a plan and asks Elvin to trust him and follow him. This makes him curious, and our hero says that with their abilities, getting close to demons is no different than putting your head into a tiger's mouth. So they must find a helmet that will remain intact even when the tiger's mouth closes. Elvin doesn't understand what he means by that and asks, confused, why a helmet? Imperial Academy, Student Council Room, the Kepler siblings, and our hero meet with Lucella, who welcomes them, and declares that in the name of Duke Vincent von Delphion, she accepts the proposal, and says, if you dedicate yourselves to the safety of the Delphion family and the Empire, then we will be a solid support that will illuminate your future. Lucella turns to Elvin and calls him, saying that now the alliance has been formed, and as proof of that, unfortunately for Karen, he will become the disciple of her uncle Cato, leaving young Kepler in disbelief while Rudian seems amused by it. Lady Delphion asks our hero what he plans to do now, but he gets too close, making her flustered and ask what he wants. Rudian whispers in Lucella's ear that Belstadt, who was a lackey, offered his adopted daughter and not his real daughter to the prince, and asks if she understands what that means. Lady Delphion asks if he is suggesting that she too has connections to demons. Our hero says they'll see if the Marca's daughter is involved in the association's affairs, and if a new person takes her place, she might be connected to her. Lucella believes it's impossible for a mere lady to be involved in the important responsibilities of a trade company. Rudian says whether she's related or not. He asks if they should remove a parasite who is beside the third prince, leaving Lucella thoughtful. With a strange look, she agrees that parasites must be eliminated. Arcadia says she's not sure who the real demon is there, and even Diablo agrees, making our hero tell them both to shut up. Lucella asks what they should do now, and Rudian says that demons have already infiltrated noble society and even the military, and that they need to force them to the surface. First, they need to cut the roots of the demons. Our hero says he's thinking of attacking a nearby dungeon to strengthen them, knowing that even though it's very difficult, it won't be impossible. Lucella is surprised to learn that something like that is so close to the capital. Rudian says that more precisely, it's in the capital, but he knows there are 3 there in the city, and 2 are unrelated to demons. Our hero says he will enter with Senior Elvin to clear the dungeon, with the objective of gaining experience, valuable items, and eliminating future threats, and that the place is perfect to begin. Catacomb of Ruin, a mausoleum in the capital cemetery, a place with skeletons and zombies armed throughout the halls and corridors. Luciella laughs as she destroys the undead using a sword with fast strikes. Maria warns that there's a death knight ahead, making young Delphion excited for a worthy opponent and saying there's also a skeletal mage. This makes young Kepler attack the creature with her powers and enthusiasm, leaving the 2 boys speechless. Elvin asks if they're there to gain experience, and Rudian replies that was the original plan. Our hero grows tense because something isn't right. There's something there he needs to obtain. Luciella gets confused by the dungeon information and tries to recall the topic. Rudian wonders if it's really that shocking to have one of those in the capital, but understands since the Delphion house manages the empire. But Luciella becomes truly excited, saying that it's very interesting information and that the dungeon must have formed from accumulated energy in the cemetery. Just like how the dead rise from battlefields, Rudian tries to explain, unsuccessfully. Lady Delphion asks to be taken along because she's been dying to cut something recently, and this is the perfect opportunity, and that she'll make sure to gather all the resources for a dungeon raid. Our hero remembers she prefers the sword over the pen. Rudian knows that if Luciella joins, things will be easier, but the item he wants can't be shared, and that will interfere with his plans. Elvin says many don't know, but young Delphion's skills are impressive, and that it will be a great advantage to have her, which makes our hero cry. Maria says that in that case she wants to go too, since she's been feeling rusty lately and it'll be good to stretch. This surprises Rudian. Luciella asks if she's going too. Young Kepler says she's been very stressed, making Delphion say it'll be a great chance to see psychic powers in action. Our hero becomes anxious, wondering if those two will really be able to handle that properly. In front of the catacombs to the north of Nevin, someone asks if that's a sufficient level of preparation. Rudian is surprised, thinking it looks very good. Luciella smiles excitedly, holding a bunch of magical and rare items, such as a mithril sword, a light magic artifact, a dimensional bag with water and food, and silver daggers. Our hero notices that instead of the giant sword, she brought a short sword, which is better for tight spaces and clearly shows she's no novice when it comes to dungeons. He asks if by any chance she knows a place where enchanted mana gold bars and artifacts can be sold. Luciella says that if they aren't stolen items, her house can buy a good quantity, and they can handle large quantities at once as well. This makes our hero happy, knowing that he might be able to sell the artifacts 80 found in Castley's secret vault, and that just one of them could be worth up to hundreds of gold coins. Lady Delphion says that the Kepler Merchant Company is not small, and asks if he is desperate for money and needs to sell artifacts. Rudian ends up without an answer to that question. In the end, he looks at the Kepler siblings, and Luciella says that she knew, declaring that they and our hero are not true allies. This surprises Maria and Elvin. Because of this, Lady Delphion approaches Rudian, saying that she trusts he will explain everything properly. However, this will be later, and now he needs to show the way, which puts our hero in a tight spot, thinking that she doesn't really need to believe him. Arcadia says that short lies are quickly discovered while Rudian begins to lead the way. After entering the catacomb, Luciella starts to speak, saying that there is definitely a problem here, because in such a large place underground, there should be a caretaker. Our hero says that probably someone silenced him. This makes the young Delphion ask the informant to explain, and Rudian says that he doesn't know why the caretaker disappeared but knows that the place ended up like this. Many of those who perished in the wars are buried here, causing the place to accumulate grudges and negative thoughts easily, which is perfect for necromancers. Luciella asks if the culprit is a mage specialized in necromancy, but Rudian says no, and reveals that it is an entity from the underworld, which makes the young woman confused. Among the world of the 7 colors, black symbolizes the underworld that governs death. There is an entity from that world in this place, which was summoned by demons, but Rudian knows that the creature was just abandoned there after being used. Our hero says that this being absorbs energy and raises the dead to expand the influence of the underworld. Luciella asks if he was really going to attack here with Elvin. Lady Delphion asks if he's sure he doesn't need to call the knights, and Rudian says he's sure, knowing that with Maria there's no reason to bring weak people. Luciella excitedly moves ahead, saying that such things need to be pruned before they rot. With a quick and strong strike from her short sword, the noblewoman disarms an armored zombie, and soon after she strikes again, hitting the undead creature's chest. That's a death knight who says that he won't close his eyes until he has his revenge, and won't rest until he does. However, Luciella interrupts him, saying she already destroyed those who tormented him, and quickly executes him. Rudian notes that she alone took down a powerful opponent with a combat power above 20,000 in just 3 hits. which makes him wonder if she's a monster. The young Delphion says excitedly that this is great, and she can feel the stress disappearing. Our hero also feels very good, but if it weren't for the cemetery setting, his heart would be beating much stronger. Rudian notices that there are many undead with the horde approaching. Lucella asks if it's quantity over quality, saying that it's getting boring not seeing any other Death Knights or skeleton mages. Maria steps forward and says she'll clear the way, and that since there doesn't seem to be anything important to pick up, she will finish off all of them at once. She closes her fist, activating her psychic powers, releasing a burst of light that throws the zombies and skeletons ahead, causing all of them to be slowly destroyed by the power of the ability. Lucella comments that this was like a large-scale magic sweeping everything and asks if this is the true power of psychic ability. Maria says it wasn't anything special, but Lady Delphion gets excited, thinking it's incredible. Our hero sees this as a problem because in this way, the two will get almost everything by imperial law, although he doesn't mind losing one of them. However, the other, a sword, he absolutely needs to obtain. A huge noise echoes from a door further ahead. Elvin complains about this, while Maria comments that the underworld entity has a scream like a sheep. Lucella, excited by the powerful opponent, calls the young Kepler to go together, and she accepts. The two advance as if they were on a picnic, leaving the boys behind who ask, "And what about us?" The group enters a chamber full of bones on all sides. Young Delphion says she can't believe this place exists, and that she'll have a lot to investigate when she returns. Maria comments that it looks like a coliseum, and Lucella says it looks even more like one. But Rudian asks if she thought it looked more like a place for public executions. The noble confirms, and says those skeletons are not spectators, and maybe they are prisoners who were executed. A winged creature armed with a massive sword approaches from the top of the chamber, roaring at the group. "How did you know I was here?" Elvin is surprised by the creature he sees, and says that's Baphomet, a lackey of the king of the underworld. Maria says she suspected it because of the sheep's bleat, and her brother says this is a much bigger problem than he thought. Diablo laughs, saying the creature seems to have been injured while traveling through the dimensional gate. This makes Rudian question him, since it looks perfectly normal. The Demon King says that if it were normal, it wouldn't be speaking to humans like this, and with the king of the underworld backing him, he's even rude to the Demon Kings. Diablo assures that Monster will try to negotiate with Rudian using illusions and temptations. The moment our hero believes in them, it will be the end. Baphomet screams, saying that just 4 humans are a perfect prey. The creature tries to intimidate the group by shouting that it will execute all of them. Rudian asks Diablo for help, who says that Being is a master of curses, so he needs to be careful, especially when it's about to be banished back to the underworld. At that moment, it's most dangerous. Our hero adds that it will try to take someone with it, but he believes that if possible, he needs to get his hands on it. With a sheep-like bleat, Baphomet charges, brandishing its sword at the group. Our hero wants the essence that the creature possesses. The monster quickly approaches, flying. Elvin says that with that huge sword, even a scratch would be fatal. Baphomet's enormous weapon closes in on our hero, who takes his fencing stance to receive the attack. Maria quickly uses her psychic powers, creating a barrier around Rudian, which makes him excited and ready to counterattack the monster. Everyone receives psychic protection while our hero believes that as long as he has Maria's barrier, things will be easier. He takes on a new stance, confident that he can block the attack. Lucella and Elvin move into action, flanking the underworld entity, and with their swords, they manage to hit the monster's legs, making Baphomet scream in pain from the blows. Maria says that Being isn't as impressive as she thought, but Rudian knows that she's actually just very strong. Our hero was planning to use Diablo's power if it were just him and Elvin fighting, but in this situation, maybe it won't be necessary. Seeing Baphomet's status window, Rudian is shocked to learn that the monster's original combat power is over 100,000 points. Maria compares the entity to demonized Gus, but notes that the enemy seems to be under heavy restriction and says it would be best to finish it off soon. She also notices the monster is protecting something and asks if it could be that. A strange black orb floating in the air, emanating energy from the underworld. This makes Rudian curious. Upon seeing the item, he's surprised and says that it wasn't in the original story, and that it doesn't seem to emit mana or spiritual energy, wondering what it could be. Maria comments that it doesn't matter what it is, they can figure it out after annihilating Baphomet. Our hero says he's glad they think alike. The entity tries to grab Elvin, who manages to immobilize the creature's hand using his psychic powers. Lucella, excited, lands another hit and says that if she had known this was going to happen, she would have brought Zeldika, making Rudian ask if she really named her sword. But our hero looks at his own sword named Diablo and knows he can't judge other people's taste. Deciding to enter the fray now, Rudian confidently charges toward Baphomet. The demon in the sword warns him to aim for the monster's heart and says its magic will be quite dangerous. Gripping the sword tighter, our hero attacks the leg of the entity, knowing it won't be easy to strike the creature's heart. Baphomet swings in a wide horizontal arc, trying to hit as many as possible, but seems to miss. This leaves him confused as to why he's having trouble, since normally these rookies wouldn't be worth his time. This enrages him, and he screams, saying that he won't forgive any of them, from the demons who trapped him there to the humans who want to destroy that sacred body. Diablo asks how that servant of the king of the underworld dares to speak of a sacred body. Rudian tells them not to look directly at the monster, fearing that the creature will cast a powerful curse before being defeated. Elvin and Lucella respond that they understand. Our hero, standing behind the entity, says that he will finish this quickly. Baphomet roars as he strikes, making the young Kepler protect himself with his powers and the barrier created by his sister. Elvin struggles to defend himself and asks Rudian if this guy isn't too strong for just the two of them to handle, and that if it were just the two of them alone, they'd be finished. Our hero asks if he really has time to complain, irritating the veteran. Baphomet continues to rage at the situation, knowing that if it weren't for that barrier, he would have already won. The underworld entity looks to the side and points a finger at Maria, saying, "Human girl, if it weren't for you." Furious, Baphomet attacks her with his enormous sword. Our hero strikes him first, saying that he won't let him attack her. The monster screams in pain from the attack, which causes him to drop the sword and fall to his knees on the ground, creating a loud crash. Our hero wonders if it's finally time to finish this. Baphomet complains that if only he had a little more time. Rudian says it's time to defeat him while he's weak, but Elvin asks if this is weak, and he responds that if he had his strength back, they wouldn't even be fighting. In fact, everyone except Maria would have perished. Baphomet begins to laugh and questions, "Do you think I'm going to disappear so pathetically?" Normally, he would be banished back to the underworld like this, but even if it costs him everything, he won't let those who humiliated him get away. Slamming his hands on the ground, the creature emits dark energy and screams, saying that they and the demons will pay and that he will see the fall of all of them with his own eyes. Our hero is confused by this and wonders why Baphomet is talking about the demons as well. The entity throws his sword away, which lands in the pile of bones. Elvin is confused by what the monster is doing, and Lucella asks if he has surrendered. With a sinister smile on his face, the creature leaves them all confused, not knowing what he's plotting. And with one hand, Baphomet impales his own chest, making Lucella wonder why he's hurting himself. Maria understands what's happening and warns everyone to stay away because he's using his life to instantly break all restrictions. With no time to waste, she uses her powers and pulls everyone away from the monster. Elvin asks if the entity is planning to cast a curse. Baphomet screams to the heavens, "I offer the rest of my life and magical power. Everything I have I dedicate to you. Please do not ignore the call of this wretched goat. O God beyond the stars," completes the entity. Our hero is shocked to hear the call to that god. Rudian remembers that in the original story, it's at this part that guy shows up during the war against the aliens, Chapter 3, Galactic War. And even though Baphomet didn't appear much, our hero knows he should have realized it was that chapter, which means he is linked to the aliens or has the ability to summon something similar. The monster continues to invoke the god, asking him to appear in that place. That strange sphere begins to emit more black energy, engulfing the entire area. Our hero realizes that they're in serious trouble now. Diablo comments, surprising Rudian, that this is dangerous, and that Baphomet is using tricks because he can't summon the king of the underworld there. Many gods of the planet exist in other planes, which is why it's hard to summon them, but judging by what's happening, Baphomet seems like he's going to succeed in summoning one of them. The demon says that the space entities don't care about the planet, so they'll destroy everything, and if they don't stop this, things will become a serious problem. Our hero becomes tense, knowing that if Diablo is saying it's a problem, then it will truly be terrible. Baphomet continues to summon the alien creature, asking for it to come into that place. Elvin comments that he has a bad feeling, and Lucella says that she has never felt such power before. Maria shouts, saying that they can't leave that orb alone and that she won't hold back anymore from this point forward. Our hero asks her to wait and says they need to deal with Baphomet, not the item, and that if they're not careful, the orb will cause a massive explosion. But the monster laughs, saying it's too late. Saying that executing him doesn't matter, he invites them to eliminate him, claiming that seeing that power go out of control will produce an interesting result. With difficulty, Maria says that if the entity Baphomet is trying to summon appears, not even she will be able to deal with the new enemy, and that even if the entire imperial capital explodes, they must stop it. Otherwise, the whole continent will be destroyed. Rudian says the continent won't fall that easily. Irritated, Maria says it's not the time for jokes. But our hero says he's going to fix it and will run toward Baphomet and impale his heart with the sword. But the consequences will be immense, and he asks if she can protect him. Maria asks if he's insane for throwing himself into that unknown power. Rudian smiles, saying he's never seen before the power of the underworld and the force of space. Confident, our hero says that if it's him, looking at the sword, he'll succeed, which makes Diablo laugh, saying he's finally realized how amazing he is. Again, Rudian asks if she can do it. Maria, with no other choice, accepts the plan. Confident, our hero starts approaching, saying he's ready. Rudian asks how much time he has, and Diablo informs him that his capacity has increased slightly and he now has 1 minute and 30 seconds. Our hero says that will be enough, but asks if he really only gained those few extra seconds. The demon says that if he wants more, he should hurry up and become a sword master. Confident, he replies that he will certainly achieve it. Facing the situation, he says he just needs to wait a bit. Rudian, borrowing the demon's power, comments that whenever he does, he always feels like his life expectancy drops. Diablo replies that it's amazing to lose so little. Lucella is surprised to see the magical sword. Maria says, as expected, it's no ordinary sword, and her brother doesn't know how long he'll stay sane. This makes Lady Delphion ask if it's truly magical. Lucella asks if they knew all this time that Rudian had a magical sword, but Elvin doesn't know how to explain. Our hero finally attacks the monster, but Barrier stops him. Diablo comments that even at this point, Maria's protection should hold. Rudian changes the form of the strike and manages to break the barrier. Baphomet can't believe he destroyed that magical protection with a single attack, but the energy frightens him. Laughing, Diablo reveals himself to the underworld monster and asks, "You know it's me, don't you?" The creature is stunned to see who it is and says it saw him being sealed by the Archangel at the end of the war, which makes the demon realize that this monster is one of the old ones. Diablo asks if Baphomet was one of those near the seal, and says that's even more reason not to forgive him. A beam of demonic energy approaches the monster's neck, which screams in pain as it is pierced by the attack. Diablo laughs as he watches Baphomet suffer, ordering the monster to return to its dimension and greet the king of the underworld. The entity lets out a sheep-like scream of agony as it feels its life end. Little by little, Baphomet's body releases a massive amount of vapor as it dries up. Our hero grows concerned and wonders if this is okay, since even if Addis has the authority to absorb magical power, if Diablo takes a part of it, that could be bad. In the end, the monster vanishes into vapor and dark energy. The orb begins to shatter into many pieces, and soon falls to the ground, breaking into tiny shards. Rudian asks if it's finally over. Diablo says it's not done yet. That leaves our hero confused, and the demon says, "It looks like one particle remained." Tense, Rudian looks up. Elvin is stunned by what he sees, while Lucella asks what that thing is. An eye inside a mouth and a mouth below the eye watches the group. It was only part of a grotesque giant monster with gray skin, 2 heads, and several eyes and mouths all over its body. Our hero is confused by what he's seeing. The aliens from Chapter 2 were just tentacled cephalopods. Diablo says that creature wasn't what Baphomet really wanted to summon, which brings Rudian some relief, but the demon adds that something much more dangerous has appeared. This makes our hero genuinely anxious. He realizes they're screwed and wonders what they can do now. The summoned monster has a humanoid form and slowly begins to shrink in size and starts speaking in a very strange language. Neither Diablo nor our hero understands anything being said, but Arcadia says the creature is here for fun and, like the others, doesn't want to fight. This surprises Rudian, realizing he can understand, and the AI says it can translate. Our hero makes Adi upset by saying that he looks like an alien and that they seem like cousins since a one-eyed tentacle monster is just like an alien. Rudian asks how she will translate if the others can't see him, and Arcadia responds that she is adjusting everything with her powers. Our hero remembers that these beings can take on a human form and asks Adi to inquire if the creature can shapeshift. Adi says he understands and rushes towards the alien. Rudian watches as the eye approaches the creature, where it starts to have a conversation of signals and strange words with the monster. After some time, Arcadia returns and says that it can, and that this isn't its true form. It was just imitating a human appearance. This time it will perform a proper transformation. The creature's body begins to dissolve into white light. Now it finally starts speaking the human language, saying that it's difficult and takes a little time. In its more normal form for everyone, it starts speaking, saying that it finds it interesting to see the chosen one, the sealed one, and the one who was dragged along. She introduces herself as Yev and says that she will follow them for a while. That's how you will understand, completes the alien.
Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.